Good evening. We're calling the October 24th, 2023 Select Board meeting to order here in the Town Hall's board meeting room and also on Zoom. While we're waiting while we're looking if there are any other signups, I think we've got everyone. Just to go over the agenda tonight, we'll have public comment and then we'll have select board liaison and town manager reports. The 7:30 item, Director of Equity introduction, Albert Pless, is postponed. We think until November 7th. At 7:40, we'll have a hearing on the tax classification annual vote. Then we'll do a discussion and potential vote on April 2024 town elections. Then we'll discuss an appointment to the Board of Registrars. And then we'll discuss the town manager screening committee and search process. And then we'll finish, as we always do, with future agendas and approving, I believe, one set of meeting minutes. So with that, I have the list of folks who would like to make public comment here in person at Town Hall. So if you could please come up and give your name and address at the podium, and try to keep your comments to 2 minutes. And so I'll go in order. First, we've got Erin Calvo-Bacci, please. Thanks, Erin. Yes, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Erin Calvo-Bacci, 494 Main Street. And I'm also speaking here as a member of the Retail Association of Massachusetts. I'm an executive board member with them, as well as a small business member on the National Retail Federation Small Business Steering Committee. So in regards to a comment that had gone out recently in regards to the moving the tax for the small businesses and thinking that things are back to normal. They are anything but back to normal for small businesses. Businesses are facing more of a challenge at this time, and we are thankful to be part of a community such as Reading, which does so much for the community through our businesses. As an example today with the Halloween trick-or-treating, and also coming up will be the lights on the common for the holidays. So I just respectfully ask that when people are thinking about our businesses, please keep in mind that things are anything but back to normal. Things are still, if anything, even more challenging for our small businesses, actually all our businesses, but especially our small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Marilyn Shapley, please.
Good evening. Hello. I'm Marilyn Shapley, 11 John Carver Road. I'm a member of the Council on Aging, but I'm here as an individual resident tonight, not representing the council, only because we haven't had a chance to discuss this. I'm here tonight to share some thoughts and encouragement regarding Reading's tax strategies. First, I want to thank you all for the hard work you devote to consideration of our tax structure every year. This, as well as all the other work you do, is greatly appreciated. A point I ask us all to focus on tonight, as tax classification is discussed, is the fact that the proportion of Reading residents who are over 60 is growing. The number I have heard cited recently indicates that 27% of our residents are now 60 years old or older, and it's anticipated this trend will continue. Statistics on the number of residential properties in Reading are essential to any discussion of the tax base. But in looking at those numbers, I ask that we also dig deeper to consider the shifting financial position of the people who occupy those homes. As our population ages, a larger and larger proportion of the population depends primarily, if not entirely, on a fixed income. This is not news. On many occasions, I've heard, I think, all members of the Select Board express their concern that residential tax hikes could make Reading a place where older adults can no longer afford to live. And I commend the town on its adoption of the Reading Senior Circuit Breaker credit. However, while the financial resources of many of our elderly homeowners become more and more constrained, the needs of a bigger, better senior center expanded programming, and additional services for the 60-plus population to keep pace with our changing demographics growth. That said, tonight, I just want to encourage us all to really carefully explore the role that our commercial taxes, in addition to residential, might play in supporting these community needs. Thank you.
Next, Will Finch, please.
Yeah, Will Finch, 51 Mill Street. I have two things I'd like to speak on. One is not on the agenda. Is that allowed at this point?
Yes.
Okay, so this concerns some vandalism that was done on the Mill Street Bridge around August 2020. An 18 by 24 by 24 inch granite block was dislodged from the abutment and is creating a blockage and impediment to navigation as well. I've contacted the Reading and the North Reading DPWs, and they know of the problem but have done nothing to correct the issue. I also contacted the Reading Historical Commission, as this is an historic bridge. Mass DOT also knows of the issue. This clearly is a structural issue as well and should have been corrected by now. Thank you. The engineers from both towns actually have said that it's not a structural issue. However, if another block gets knocked out, you know, who knows when it will become a structural issue. I've been told by Fidel Maltese that Reading does not own a machine that can remove the block or put it back in place. But I don't think that's a very good excuse for not acting on this. So I'd just like to try and get the ball rolling. I've been working on this since 2020 to no avail. And
I'm just gonna ask a clarifying question when you're done, sorry.
I'm gonna move on to another subject.
I just wanted, this is the Mill Street Bridge that cars drive over?
Yes.
It's not a footbridge, it's a
Yeah.
vehicle bridge, thank you.
And I also like to comment on the tax rate.
Yeah.
The way I see it, businesses locate in Reading because they know the community. They have friends here, connections. And so the argument that raising their taxes is gonna cause them to move to another town, to me, is not logical. Especially when many of the other towns already have higher rates. And also vacancy rates for most towns are about the same. And our low rates for commercial property haven't helped getting vacant properties occupied. So I just don't think that the tax rate is the driving engine in this situation. And I'm in favor of increasing the split or percentages in the tax rate between residential and commercial.
Thank you. Next, Mary Ellen O'Neill, please.
Thank you. Mary Ellen O'Neill, 125 Summer Avenue. On behalf of my husband and myself, I'd like to say that we support the split tax rate. And in terms of fairness, we'd like to see increasing fairness for the residents. Last year, one class saw a decrease in their taxes and the residents saw theirs increase the same. This year, it looks like the commercial will also see a decrease and the residents increasing over 2.5. So anything that can move the needle a little bit to help the residents is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, John Lippett, please.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity for public testimony. I'm John Lippett, a Reading homeowner living at 23 Mineral Street. I'd like to address the property tax rate setting that you'll be doing this evening as well. For the last 11 years, Reading has been very friendly to commercial property owners and less friendly to homeowners. Typical homeowners' tax bills have gone up by about 60% in those 11 years, while the typical commercial property owner's tax bill has gone up only about 12.5%. So roughly 5% a year versus only about 1% a year. Reading homeowners in recent years have faced high inflation, COVID impacts, job losses, quickly rising property taxes, and now rising mortgage interest and other interest rates. Many families and seniors are struggling to make ends meet. Last year, even with the increase in the CIP shift to 1.05, a typical homeowner's property tax bill went up about $350, or about 3.6%, while the typical commercial property tax bill went up only by about $50, or half of 1%. I think it's time, at a minimum, to level the playing field for this year, so all property tax bills go up by about the same percentage. The CIP shift that would need to happen to make that happen, I believe, is about 1.15. And that would accomplish what I consider a minimal goal of fairness. To level the playing field over a horizon of the last 2 to 3 years, I'd recommend tipping the playing field just a bit toward homeowners this year. So an increase to a CIP shift of 1.2 would do that, and that is what I'd recommend that you do. Reducing the property tax increase for homeowners will actually put a little more money in their pockets, which they can spend at running businesses. If the typical homeowner is asked to pay a couple $100 more in property taxes, I don't see why a typical commercial property owner shouldn't be asked to do so as well. That only seems fair to me. Yes, I do want to see our businesses stay in town, but I also want to see our seniors stay in town, and I'd love to be able to see kids of Reading families be able to afford to live in the town where they grew up. As you know, Reading has the second highest residential tax rate of the 6 surrounding communities. The only one that's lower is Woburn because it has a huge commercial tax base. And Reading has the lowest, as I already mentioned, commercial property tax rate of the surrounding towns. And one final thing is at the CIP shift in the other communities. There's one community that's at 1.0, but the other 5, one is at 1.5 and the other 4 are at 1.75, dramatically higher than we are in Reading. So I would recommend you set the CIP shift here in Reading to 1.2 to be fair to property owners in Reading and well within the boundaries of what our surrounding communities are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Vanessa Alvarado, please.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. My name is Vanessa Alvarado, and I'm a Reading resident at Mount Vernon Street. Money can be an awkward thing to talk about. I was recently laid off. A friend is divorced and is now a single parent. Another friend is a stay-at-home parent because they have a child with special needs. Someone else I know is supporting an aging parent. These are things we don't often talk about because it can be uncomfortable. But there are many residents in Reading who are quietly struggling. From 2020 to 2023, my property taxes have increased almost 15%. That's $1,100 in 3 years. Let's compare that to a building at Woburn and Main Street, which has about 6 businesses. From 2020 to 2023, their taxes went down almost 1%. They are paying $250 less than they were paying 3 years ago. I want to say that again. I am paying $1,100 more today, and a commercial property is paying $250 less today than where we were 3 years ago. And this is common in Reading. Each year we don't adjust the split tax rate, residents pay more and businesses pay less. This isn't sustainable and it isn't fair. Now, I'm grateful for the wonderful businesses who support our many community events and fundraisers, and if those businesses were in any other community surrounding us, their taxes would be significantly higher. I've heard that Reading is a tough place to own a business. So let's talk about those obstacles and how to improve them. We have an entire full-time staff member dedicated to supporting businesses in town. Let's work with him to make it easier to be a business owner and eliminate some of the red tape that we know we have. Taxes are necessary to support our schools, our infrastructure, and our entire community, and they affect every property owner in town. I'd like to ask you to please make sure those taxes are fair and sustainable. I would ask you to please support a 1.3 split rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie Bradley, please.
Hi, my name is Jamie Bradley. I am no longer a Reading resident, but I was for 28 years. I now live in Beverly, but I'm here as a representative for the Reading, North Reading Chamber of Commerce. I can tell you from what I hear from our members that things are not back to normal. They are still being challenged. They're facing increased supply costs. They're facing higher rates for wages. And it's just not easy to just assume everything's nice and rosy. You can walk down and talk to any of the businesses here downtown, and they will tell you the same thing. Nobody wants their taxes to go up. I think that's a pretty fair assessment. But I would say for the people who are business owners, not yet. It's not time yet. They're still recovering. They're still dealing with supply chain issues. They're dealing with higher wages. They're dealing with a shortage of workers. There's a lot of things that they're facing. One of the other gentlemen mentioned that we have a very low commercial base here in town. So any increase is not going to have as big an impact because it's more difficult to, get people just to come into town to have businesses here. So on behalf of the chamber, I'd just like to say, if you could put this off, that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, Tom O'Connor, please.
Tom O'Connor, Van Norden Road resident and business owner at 660 Main Street. I do appreciate the opportunity to speak on this subject this evening. I have been fortunate enough to be in business for over 40 years and grow with the town. This has been a very difficult subject through the years. We as businessmen have experienced through COVID setback. We still haven't recovered from it, as was mentioned by the chamber representative. I would ask that we've absorbed a increase already. I would ask if the tax rate could be left as it was, even, and all the business places still are not full and thriving. I know my son, who was nice enough to take over, couldn't be here this evening, still is trying to bring back some normalcy to our business, to the level that it was before COVID. I do recognize, though, that the people in Reading have been very, very fortunate, many of you here this evening, in supporting us. We do appreciate it, but we feel now is not the time to experience a tax increase for the businesses, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the room who has not signed up who would like to provide public comment? Yes, go ahead. Yes, please. If you could please give your name and address. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Douglas. I live at 46 Bainbridge Road here in Reading. I also am the owner of the Douglas Edgley Investment Funeral Home, which we've probably been here for 63 years. And I can understand being a property owner as well as a business owner that, having to pay your fair share of taxes, both commercial and residential. I feel at this time, as they pointed out, that, with the effects of COVID and things of that nature, the businesses are still being affected by that. And I also feel that, we need to bring better businesses into town. I think our relationships between businesses and the town are much better than they were. And I think we need to keep that process going. And but I just hold off. I just feel that we should hold off on any increase in the split tax. And again, I'm all for paying my fair share and whatever everyone thinks is best. That's the way it is. But that's my view. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great. Anyone else in the room who has not yet spoken who would like to? Okay, Caitlin Fidel, are there any folks on Zoom who would like to provide public comment?
No residents, no.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to select board liaison reports. Chris, let's start with you, please.
Thanks, Jackie. The Charter Committee had our
second meeting, first real-ish meeting on Monday of last week. We set up the structure going forward, so we're gonna be looking at Articles 1 and 2 of the Charter at our next meeting on Monday, the 30th, and kind of going through those as well, seeing how long the first two take and then going from there. So we're gonna end up having public comment in the beginning and then hosting a public forum sometime in the future. David Zeke gave public-ish comment during that meeting, so he wants to bring up something during Article 8, I believe. So that's gonna be sometime January, February-ish by the time we get down to that. But we're gonna discuss one meeting, vote the next, not the following, maybe vote all towards the end-ish, but nothing is gonna be concrete until the end with that. And then a shout out to the DPW that helped us over at Coolidge Middle School this weekend. Put together to clean up the courtyard that is over there and redo the benches and everything. It's a complete transformation. And it just goes to show that whatever property we have to be able to maintain it. Otherwise, Imagination Station with the rats and everything else turns into a parking lot now instead. Maybe that's better, maybe it isn't, but we have to be able to do the upkeep on our buildings that we have. But once again, thank you to Fidel, the two members of the DPW that were over there that helped us. They carried away 2 truckloads of stuff. It was pretty massive. And obviously all the other volunteers that came up with us. The kids did a lot of the work themselves too, which was good. But yeah, and then downtown Trick or Treat was obviously great as well. Just seeing, it seemed like there was more people this year than last, probably because last year it rained and this year was surprisingly didn't rain. But other than that, easy peasy. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Regarding your liaison report, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a way for residents, boards and committees to be able to submit a charter review request. Is that coming?
I asked Fidel to set up like charter at Reading and an email address set up as well. We're gonna reach out to the chairs of all the various boards and whatnots, but we're gonna have an email set up, distribution list to all of us as well.
Okay. Are you guys gonna have a page so that we could direct residents? I'm getting calls
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, I can keep a note, but really, we're gonna get more, so.
I was starting off with email first. I know when I brought it up to Fidel, what's his name? Someone just got let go or they just left in IT or something, so they were overwhelmed with setting stuff up.
It's set up now.
It is. Yep, so if we wanna go ahead with the page too as well. So, yeah.
Okay.
I see, like a page on the website. you mean?
Yes, correct. Same thing like
So I
SWAC.
can send them,
Sure. Good.
that would
Yeah,
probably,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it'll get captured,
Mm-hmm.
unless you want them to put it in C-Click Fix. We could do that too, we could set up a new category for C-Click Fix. Be C-Click Fix a charter. Alright, thank you.
Okay, Karen, go ahead.
Okay, great. Okay, so this past couple of weeks, I attended one of the MMA webinars on communication. Y'all may have seen in the news what happened in Wilmington last week. You know, things can get heated, and it was a great webinar for, you know, sharing experiences that other folks have had and talking about strategies for keeping things on an even keel and moving forward. I was happy to attend the library and also get to meet our new DEI director, and I look forward to getting to know him a bit more. Today, the chair of the Killam School Building Committee, as well as Fidel and the superintendent, met with our owner's project manager and our project manager to begin prepping for the design, to review the designer responses. We received 4 of them, and to talk about the process for getting ready to go before the Mass School Building Committee. So there'll be 2 items on the 7th of November. There will be a review and a winnowing down to the finalists, and then on the 21st, go through the process of having one selected. And again, they have far more input than we do, but we do have 3 town representatives, and it will be a Zoom meeting if anyone else wants to follow along. a public Zoom meeting.
Could you repeat that date and time, please?
Yeah, this 11/7 would be winnowing, talking about the responses we have and winnowing it down to the finalists. Then on the 21st, that would be the final selection meeting. Currently, they're posted at 8:30 a.m., but we're really not sure if that'll be our time yet. And the Killam School Building Committee will next meet on the 30th, and we may have more information then. I was happy to participate in the trick or treat today. I have never seen the downtown so packed and it not be the Fall Street Fair, so kudos to, I think Recreation led it, but for all your work sponsoring it, this event has grown in the past 3 years. It was just this cute little thing where all these little kids were on the town common, and now it is down Haven, it is down Main Street. Lots and lots of businesses participating, so the outreach by staff and the coordination with at least DPW and RPD as usual, kudos. The weather to cooperate. It was just a fantastic event and good to see everybody out. I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Carlo?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, sorry I'm not there tonight, thank you. And so CPDC met, and the main topic of the night was McDonald's, the proposed demolition of McDonald's. And there was some community input and feedback, and the board discussed the plans, the current plans, I should say, current plans that they submitted about, getting rid of the play structure there in the front and make actually that a pave for vehicles to go around the building and stay within the property. So if you came out and picked up your drive-through, instead of exiting onto Main Street, you can go in front of the building and go back into the parking lot and, have your meal or get adjusted and pass out the food. So that was their current proposal. They're going with a modern design. There was discussion about landscaping. There was discussion about the fence in the back for the abutters. So there was lots of robust discussion, and there's going to be, McDonald's representatives are going to take that under review and come back to the board. They're going to try it for the next meeting, but they're not sure if they had enough time to go over all their questions and what they'd want to see. They were concerned about the double drive-through and a little bit of bottlenecking at that. So they were going to take orders from two sides instead of currently one. So McDonald's is making some changes, changing the parking lot a little bit, putting the handicap spots closer to the building. So lots going on there, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more meetings. And, talked about that intersection, how that's part of a greater plan for us to make that intersection safer and more accessible, potentially connecting the Eastern Gateway later. So there was lots of discussion, and McDonald's was very receptive to all their comments. And the Simon's Way Committee met as well, and we went over the RFI. The Reading Pickleball Association presented, Stephen Kuhl presented, and the RFI was not really too big of a surprise. It was kind of vague. We got one respondent to respond, Edge Sports, the one Boston Institute. That's in Wellesley. So the RFI was very lengthy with a lot of slides and all the property they own. So we discussed that, and we discussed, how we want to move forward and actually have them come to a meeting. And they specifically mentioned in the RFI that they are very interested in the land behind Burbank. That was made clear when we walked it over a month ago, and they reiterated that in the RFI, that would be part of their design. They proposed, again, this is a proposal only, they proposed a rink, a pool, and doing over the baseball field to turf and make that multi-purpose. And again, a lot of things were to be determined. This was just a very, very rough draft. No drawings were submitted. It was just black and white text, and future conversations will be had about that. Reading Pickleball Association, as we all know, has a citizen's petition on the November warrant. We discussed it. We are gonna do a quick vote in a couple weeks on that item. We heard Mr. Kuhl present on the dog park, and we discussed that. and we'll probably discuss it again at a future meeting. And sorry I wasn't there for trick or treat, but as you can tell, I'm away. I'm not in my house. So that's it for me right now. Thanks.
Thanks, Carlo. Mark?
Thanks, Jackie. So main activity last week, the Recalc committee got together and talked about their next steps specifically. There's a questionnaire that's been developed to do interviews with as many as possible out of, I think, a list of 24 either comparable communities or interesting communities based on what they're doing with their senior centers and what they've done recently. What our next step is that a member of staff and a member of Recalc are gonna go out and start interviewing these folks. We have a series of questions related to our core topics, those being programming for age 60 plus, creative financing, as well as general financing, and transportation. So the goal is to get as many of those done as possible before Thanksgiving, and the holiday season kind of gets upon us, so that's moving along. The second activity related to Recalc is that we should have responses to the
Tomorrow? Oh,
Yep.
Sorry, on Thursday.
Thursday. So this week, we'll have responses to RFQ on the feasibility study. And then we need to talk about kind of, I guess, getting a meeting
We
scheduled.
have one the week after.
Am I all right? Make sure it's on my calendar. Yikes. Okay, great. That sounds good. Commissioner Truss met. At the moment, the good news of high interest rates is that we're collecting a good amount of interest on our balances and things like that, which is increasing the available funds for trust to spend. So all going on. We are down a member on the commission. We had a long-standing member who resigned as of end of June. So we're looking for someone who'd like to join, become a trust fund commissioner. So if folks are interested, please fill out an application, town clerk's office, or I think you can get one online and print it as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Just a few things from me. A thank you to public safety. Over the weekend, police, fire, EMS, unfortunately had a quite a busy weekend, it sounds like, between some vehicle thefts and break-ins, a fairly significant motor vehicle crash on Haverhill Street, another one, and also a fairly significant house fire just this week. And it's again a reminder of some of those core services that we rely on for police and fire. So thank you to those first responders. I had an occasion to meet with Dr. Milichevsky about our town manager process. And while I was with him, I had a chance to ask how things are going with the literacy program. As you might remember, the ARPA Advisory Committee and the Select Board voted to give, I believe, about $2 million to the schools for a program in English and language arts. I understand that program has been fully rolled out to 4th and 5th grade, and then is beginning to be rolled out in 1st through 3rd. And just wanted to pass along the good news that our elementary schools scored the 4th highest growth in the state out of 307 districts in terms of English and language arts growth percentile. And so this is proficiency in reading across all demographic groups. And Dr. Milichevsky shared with me a bit about some of the challenges that the schools have faced with any new program. We know this from our day jobs or from our, volunteering, or even here at the select board. Change is always difficult, but it sounds like there are really some good things coming out of that reading and literacy program, and the scores in that regard support that. So kudos to all the school community for working through those things. As others mentioned, tomorrow night there will be a combination financial forum and economic forum. The main topic of discussion will be MBTA communities, and so I encourage folks to join us at the library at 7 p.m. or on Zoom. And then just again to kind of close on public safety, just a reminder, Halloween is 1 week from tonight. Sunset is getting earlier, and so please remember to drive like your kids live here. So thank you. And now Fidel, turn it over to you for the town manager report. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So aside from the trick or treat, we had the joy of hosting 4 second grade classes from the Killam School. And like last year, they brought a petition signed by their classmates. And this petition is to clean the woodsy area that is next to the Killam School. But it was just really cute to see the second graders being involved in the government process. I wanted to share with the board the exciting news on grants. I will. It is on page 2 of your packet, page 3 of your packet, and most importantly, just highlight the really big grant that we were fortunate to receive, which is a $2.6 million grant from the state, from the Community One Stop for Growth program, and that is going to heavily subsidize our work on Haven Street. We believe that it's going to be a $6 or $7 million project. We haven't quite finalized it yet. In addition to the $2.6 million grant that we received, there is an appropriation as part of a bond bill for an additional $3 million that we are chasing for this project. It's a legislative process at that point. It's not a grant process, but certainly the $2.6 million grant is a great start. I shared with the board that there is an official unveiling or an award ceremony tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. at Suffolk Downs, and Ben Karras and I will be representing Reading there tomorrow morning. I also heard that the progress on Birch Meadow is very obvious. The building is coming together quite well, and the parking lot is really taking shape. The contractor has promised us to work really hard towards their previous finish date of the end of the month, but it might be a few days delayed. But I have heard from the community that it's very obvious that they are there and are very active. Another project that has come up a lot is Sturgis Pump Station. I checked in with DPW, and they are seeing a lot more progress there. Our new DPW director is coming to the board at your next meeting, and is planning to have a more in-depth construction update on 3 projects, which come up here quite routinely, including the pump station and the water tank. I also wanted to just highlight that the Warren reports are finished. Our town clerk emailed the town meeting members and also members of the different committees that are represented in at town meeting to pick up the Warren report at your convenience. And finally, we will set up that page for the charter review committee, and that email is charter@ci.reading.ma.us, and it will be on that website. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Jackie. I think Fidel covered everything with Birch, Sturgis, Water Tower, briefly mentioned, but what is the deal with the cell tower move over? Is that optimistic for this year, or are we looking at next, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's the end of October, so the it's getting close to the end of the year, but we have officially executed a lease with T-Mobile. We have come to terms with AT&T. We are awaiting that document from them, but all negotiations are essentially done. There are on that tower is AT&T, T-Mobile, and our equipment, our public safety equipment. T-Mobile and AT&T are going through the process of design and permits into the tank, but we have given them essentially the green light to go ahead and go onto our tank. Obviously, as you can imagine, there's some coordination, right, of going onto the tank and then removing the equipment. I tell you that it is a conversation that our town engineer and I have at least on a weekly basis, and town council has been involved as well. It's just the carriers are not moving with a lot of speed at the moment.
All right. And then just one more thing to follow up on Birch. I did see them working there on Sunday, so they have actually, been really putting in the effort there. Otherwise, if you didn't see them there and they're still over the time limit, then, but they've been putting the time in, so that's good to see. And hopefully the water tower stuff gets squared away. Thank you. Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up. I was just wondering, is there any holdup to the public safety equipment getting moved over to the tower, or what's the status of that?
There's no holdup per se. I mean, it's a process more or less. I mean, the contractor that has the equipment, it is scheduled to do that work, but it's a lot of wiring, a lot of physical work that has to get done. But on our end, they have been given the green light to move forward with that move.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to the tax classification hearing. Karen, could you please read the hearing notice?
Yes, ma'am. To the inhabitants of the town of Reading, notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held in accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 369 of the Acts of 1982, and the issue of determining a residential factor and assessing the percentage of tax burden to be borne by each class of property for fiscal year 2024. The hearing will be held on Tuesday, October 24th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Select Board Meeting Room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass, and remotely on Zoom. The 5 classes of property involved are residential, open space, commercial, industrial, and personal property. Copy of the proposed document regarding this topic will be available in the Select Board packet on the website at www.readingmass.gov. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing or may submit their comments in writing or by email to townmanager@ci.reading.ma.us by order of Fidel Maltez, Town Manager.
Thanks, Karen. Hi, Victor.
Hi, folks. Thanks for having me once again to deliver classification to the town of, checks notes.
Yeah, you have to.
Reading.
Where am I tonight?
You'd be pleased to know, 4th year in a row, Reading is first in the queue of the communities that I do,
good.
so. All right, with tax classification, the select board is required to make determinations on 4 points. First, and the most important being the minimum residential factor, which is the factor you decide that ultimately yields tax rates. Selection of an open space discount, pretty simple, we don't have land classified as open space. Granting of a residential exemption, I do get into why that's a bad idea always. And the granting of a small commercial exemption, I talk about that later on. Minimum residential factor. Basically, if you divide the tax levy, which is just under $88 million, by the total value of all property in the town, which is slightly below $7.5 billion, you come up with a single tax rate of $11.75. That would be what I refer to as a minimum residential factor of 1. No shift, a single tax rate across the board. I have to put this in now about the Reading Senior Circuit Breaker income tax credit because that affects what our single tax rate looks like. Because the cost of that program is borne primarily by all the other residential classes of property. This year, 229 seniors applied for the exemption, 225 were approved. The typical reasons people are not approved, their property might be in an irrevocable trust, they may not meet the minimum guidelines for ownership, they may own a second property somewhere else. So that would exclude people from being able to qualify. The total amount for those 225 people, they received a circuit breaker tax credit of $255,480. In Reading, we multiply that by 1.5%. So we give you 1.5 times what you received for an individual circuit breaker credit. So this year, the total amount that was shifted within the residential class of properties was just over $383,000. When we do that, our single tax rate would go from $11.75. Now we'd have two tax rates. Our residential rate would go up to $11.81, while the commercial, industrial, and personal tax rate stays at $11.75. However, using calculations that we did last year and using 1.05, what we did last year, the anticipated tax rates for residential would be $11.77, and for commercial, industrial, and personal would be $12.34. If you'll indulge me for a moment, a couple of notes about the senior circuit breaker credit. Seniors who receive this discount at the maximum amount save approximately 20% on the average single-family tax bill. It costs the average residential taxpayer about $50 to help seniors continue to age in place and remain vibrant in the community, which I believe is why Reading adopted this several years ago, and actually, kind of happy to be part of this and be an architect with everyone's opinions to bring this, and it's really taken off statewide. So much so, behind the scenes, I'm working with various state senators, state reps, and other communities to come up with one bill that can make it through the legislature so that municipalities can simply opt in to provide seniors tax relief rather than be required to do a home rule petition every 3 years. And also for next year, if you've been keeping tabs on the State House, recent legislation moved to double the amount of the circuit breaker. The maximum amount this year was $1,200. Next year, it is scheduled to be $2,400. The average single-family home value for fiscal 2024 is approximately $859,000. And this chart that we have here shows what the anticipated residential tax rates would be for the various shift rates that we have here. This page encompasses the first 10, and again, I bolded 1.05 because that's what we did last year. So if we adopted a minimum residential factor, the corresponding residential factor, the residential tax rate would be $11.77, and the estimated 2024 bill would be slightly over $10,100. For this year, I took it out to every possible shift point for each of the value points that I discussed, for average single-family value, average commercial value, and the median commercial value. You can entertain yourselves with looking at all these, can't cover each and every shift point for each one of these, but that's what the next 2 pages do. Then we get to the average single-family tax bill history from 2007 to present, and it shows you what the percent change in tax bills were each year over that period. Then we get to our 2024 tax rate note. Total amount of fiscal 24 debt exclusion is slightly under $2.7 million. This adds 36 cents to the residential tax rate, or to put it in something we can really understand, $308 on the average single-family home, and the average commercial property is about $730. One thing I like to include in my presentation, so people have a certain perspective on this, is single-family homes. It's our largest class of property in Reading, and arguably it's our bread and butter. Sales activity from 21 to 22. It sounds like I'm using old data, but assessments use data that's a year old. We're a year behind by design. I need an entire year of data to analyze, to pick up on sales trends, to accurately produce values going forward. So the assessments you'll see in your tax bills at the end of December are based on sales 2022. What happened in 2022 versus 2021? Well, sales were down a little bit, the number of sales, but that happens. It might be 10 or 20, more or less, each and every year that sell. Days on market was pretty steady at 22 days. However, average sale price went from $774 to $907,000 in 1 year. A 17% increase. That's sale price. Popular community to buy into, and an expensive one at that. Next up, I delve into the average commercial property value, which is just a skosh over 1.9 million. And again, I show you what at the various CIP shift rates, what the minimum residential factor would be and what the corresponding tax bill would be. So if we were to keep things the same at 1.05 like last year, corresponding tax rate would be $12.34. In the based on the average commercial value, the tax bill would be $23,659. And again, behind this chart are two more pages that tell you at each shift point what the tax obligation, the estimated tax obligation would be for a property at that value. I started doing this a few years ago because the average commercial value really didn't have too much of a relation to small business. Your small shops and what have you, maybe a smaller sized building with a couple of storefronts in it. So I decided to start incorporating the median commercial property value. And for this year, it's projected to be about $803,800. And again, looking down this chart, at 1.05, again, we have the $12.34 tax rate. The estimated tax bill would be a little over $9,900. And again, 2 pages of each and every possible shift point for people to peruse. Now I get into some comparisons. 2023, the median value was $792,000 and the tax bill was just under $10,500. 2024, at a 1.05 shift rate, the tax rate comes down to $12.34. The median value went up slightly to $803,800. Tax bill goes down approximately $543 to $9,919. So again, I surmise at the bottom, holding at a shift of 1.05 results in a net decrease in the median commercial property of $543. This next chart compares fiscal 23 taxes to fiscal 24 taxes at our projected fiscal 24 shift capacities and shows you how the tax bills change based on a corresponding shift factor. And again, as I explained in the early chart, at 1.05, our tax rates are $11.77 at $12.34. Average single-family bill, a little over $10,100. Median commercial value, and again, because I think that's much more relatable to folks, is a little bit over $9,900. And you see the average residential tax bill goes up $394, while the corresponding median commercial property decreases by $543. This next bar chart just breaks down various value points in the community. 68 properties are less than 500,000. That includes parking lots and anything real small commercial. 48 between 500 and a million. 42, $1 million to 2. 26 from 2 to 10 million, and 7 properties above 10 million. I think we can all guess what those are. Next slide shows us the average commercial tax bill over the same period that I did residential, from 2007 to present. So, just give you an idea of how residential taxes and commercial taxes have fared through the years over the same period. Now we move on to a discount for open space. I'll save you the dense language that you can read for yourselves. When you classify property, there's 5 different classifications of property. The town does not classify any property as open space. Therefore, we cannot grant a discount because no property fits the definition under Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 2A. A residential exemption. Select Board may adopt a residential exemption, an amount up to 35% of the average assessed value of all residential properties, including vacant land. When you do something like this, the residential tax rate rises significantly. And what happens is the top third, the highest third of residential value properties pay for the other 2/3. So you're basically saying, all your high-end properties, we're really gonna jack you, and, everyone else kind of benefits for it. Not the way it's adopted in communities like Boston, Chelsea. Hey, I said Chelsea. I worked there too, so I know a lot about the implementing and administering a residential exemption. The reason it works in those communities is because they have a high rate of investment residential properties, a lot of apartment buildings, a lot of 2 and 3 families that are investor owned. They're the ones that get the burden. And the reward goes to the residents who live each and every day in those communities. Small commercial exemption. We could do up to 10% of property value for commercial properties only. No industrial, no personal. Total property value has to be less than $1 million. Not more than 10 employees as certified by the Department of Employment and Training. 1 business in a building of several would qualify only if all the other businesses qualify. The exemption goes to the real estate owner, not necessarily the business owner. In less than a dozen communities in the Commonwealth have adopted this exemption. We have a lot going on in our tax rate, primarily with the Reading Senior Discount Program and the slight shift onto the commercial side. This would create 2 commercial tax rates, and really it would be a mess to administer. And my department, based on the list that we get every year, is unaware of any businesses that would be able to strictly comply with these requirements. And then we get into some other stuff here about where we stand with other communities. Why is Wakefield higher? Okay. And Linfield isn't, gee. You see where Reading stands, based on last year's numbers. I don't have 24 numbers up there, well, because I'm almost done in Wakefield, not even close in Linfield, and I don't know what the other few towns are doing. So this tells us where we are relative, where we were for tax rates, what the average single-family tax bill was, and what our shift capacities are, and what communities are doing with those shift capacities. And then we get into, I still don't know why I do this. Some obscure town committee 25 years ago decided to measure Reading against all these other towns, and it's kind of been like, okay, Vic, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. So for your reading pleasure, the last couple of pages are all comparisons to similar type communities, the Middlesex League, largely residential comparable communities, Reading Town comparisons. Oops, I forgot to change the title of that, should read fiscal '23. And then another page of the comparisons, and then just some terms we may bandy about during the discussion for clarity. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Victor. Yes.
I was just gonna ask, thank you. In your many years of experience, has anyone ever tried to address this poorly written and poorly adopted small business exemption, to your knowledge?
A friend of mine who was assessor in Westford, he was actually an alternate on my board until recently. They adopted it in his community, and it was from a managerial standpoint, as the assessor, it's difficult to administer. The hard part is identifying the businesses that may qualify. I'll readily admit, there may be 2 in town that could qualify for this. But then when you think of the ramifications, you're going to raise the tax rate on every other business to save these folks a mere 10%. To create basically 3 tax rates. We'd have a residential rate and 2 commercial rates. It's just not. I don't like to make recommendations, but I hope you can read between the lines the difficulty with trying to implement something like this, particularly in a community where the commercial share is so small to begin with.
Yeah, I was just wondering, this has been like this for years and years and years, and it's clearly not working, and I've just wondered why, if anyone had ever tried to fix it. Okay. Doesn't sound like you've run into any initiatives.
No.
Okay.
Chris.
I just want to follow up on Karen's point. So on that slide where it brought up the small business exemption that we don't want to adopt because it would be too difficult, yet I don't see that as being an issue, that something's too difficult for us to not actually do it. That's my opinion. I qualify under every single item on there, other than the one business in a building if several would qualify only if other businesses qualify. So my business on Two Haven, if I have 5 people in my office, I'm already good. Does that mean that the neighbor next to me can have 6 people and then we're all done? Or he has to have under 10 and qualify on all that stuff as well?
Each individual business must qualify. What's the total value of the building?
I have no clue.
If it's $1 million and $1, no one
Oh,
qualifies.
so the building, well, that,
Property value less than $1 million.
to Karen's point, this thing is absurd. No building, nobody's gonna qualify for this.
Hence, not many towns do it. Less than 8, I believe, have attempted it.
So why can't we change this?
State law. Become a state rep and change the law, respectfully.
Well, I understand, well, maybe I'll take you up on that.
Go ahead.
Why doesn't anyone change, this just seems as if it was written 30 years ago and nobody ever decided to update it. How difficult is to add a 0 to that and just be done with it?
You speak on this, I say the same thing about statutory exemptions available to veterans, seniors, blind, surviving spouses. There's a lot to reconsider when it comes to state law, how it affects its administration in our communities.
But I don't know, someone has to do something on this because it would somewhat put us in a better position to say that we truly care about our small businesses here in Reading. We're gonna go with the small commercial exemption for the truly small ones, and the other ones, the bigger box retailers would be able to afford whatever increase that we're putting onto them. But for, like, this just seems meaningless to ever bring up again.
Let's put it in perspective, well, you're required to vote on it.
Yeah.
But let's look at it, 10% of property value is $100,000. And times our tax rate, projected tax rate of $1,234, it's a $1,200 discount, basically, you know, for a small business, which, you know, may be meaningful, but the administration of that, where it gets difficult. And when I say, I'm not saying it's too difficult to do. It's just another layer within the tax rate. Can I do it? Yeah. But conceivably, with all your commercial property in town, finding the couple that qualify, difficult enough, because I can't go off your word. I have to go on what's reported from the state. Some people have LLCs, they may not fall under the same reporting requirements of the state, so their businesses are not on my list. So going through that, now you've identified the 2 or 3 unicorns within the tax base that can qualify. Then you're gonna shift that burden to the other commercial taxpayers to pay for the discount. Within, it's like the residential, it's like the Reading senior discount. We shift within the residential rate, this is a shift only within the commercial rate.
But this is a small commercial exemption. The entire point of it being small is whatever you declared a small business with under 10 employees, et cetera. It's not a middle commercial exemption or a large commercial exemption. It is a small commercial exemption. So I understand the unicorn approach. It's never gonna happen. Someone should actually make a change on something on this and just attempt to do something other than the same thing getting brought up over and over. Because it would really put us in a better position. Hearing the $1,200 is not a big deal, or it is, or it isn't, we're gonna be arguing over $500 in 20 minutes from now. That's what this is all gonna come down to, is something as low as that, when this would be able to solve a small commercial exemption for exactly what it's supposed to do. But there's no sense in doing this without changing state law, but somebody should be doing something about this. And that's all I have on Karen's related kind of thing. I have some other stuff.
Others? Carlo, any questions for Victor?
No, thank you. You know, it's obviously been updated from last year. I read it over and I have no questions, and Victor always does a great job. I'm ready to put the gloves on and duke it out.
I do have some basic questions.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Carlo. I look forward to this debate. In terms of questions for you, Victor, thank you. On page 13 of our packet, can you please explain why the rates went up 9% back in 2019? Seems like a really big increase in that year. Was that related to?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was.
thank you.
And the senior circuit.
Was the senior circuit breaker first implemented that year, or did we have it before 2019?
What did I answer you the other day?
2018.
It was implemented in 2018.
Okay, great, that's helpful. And then on page 17 of the packet,
What's the title of the slide?
the title is
It's under, after the housing, after the,
sorry, it's actually yeah.
it's this.
Oh, it's
111 after the houses,
Okay,
after the
thanks.
homes.
actually, I'm sorry, so on page 22, which is the title for median commercial tax comparison fiscal year 23 versus fiscal year 24.
Okay,
And we, as you mentioned, the median value of CIP remained pretty stable from 23 to 24. For those of us who are not experts in commercial property, can you tell us a little bit about why that remained so steady? What were some of the overall trends that, kept that number the same, where we're seeing a 17% increase in residential assessments?
We're required to use different approaches of value for different classes of property. I have copious amounts of data available on single-family sales and condo sales. So in January is when I start looking at my sales from last year. And I make changes to those sales so that the assessment reflects actually what's sold. So we update our data, and what that does is update our base. So if you sold a house that has 3 bathrooms and I only had 1.5, I would be derelict in my duty if I kept that data at 1.5 and changed your value and your value and your value. I should be able to compare apples to apples. So we have lots of data in residential, and we can't deny what the residential market has been doing over the past, I say this every year, but over the past well over a decade. With commercial properties, it's a little bit different. Every year, if you own a commercial property, I send you a nice little, how do you do? I ask you for your income. I ask you for your expenses. I ask for everything that you list that goes into operating that building. And I wish everyone sent it back to me, but the information I do get, I process and analyze. So I can come up with estimated rates for what first floor downtown typically gets for a lease. I might be able to tell you what second floor storage might get, depending on how granular the data I receive. That's data I can use and process. That's the data that I use to value income producing properties, 4 families and above. I also check that data to regional indices. So the things I look for in the big boys is if you come at me with a huge management fee, I might look at that in a rather dubious manner and see, gee, what other office buildings, what's their average management fee? Guess what? I'm gonna use the average because this one obviously can't run a building properly. If they're throwing that much money in management, or they're way over what the industry average is. So I'm not gonna lower your value because you don't run your property correctly. So these are the numbers that I go through, try to come up with what the average for this is, what the average for that is, and then apply my commercial models to the various types of structures. But as you can see, even doing so, when a commercial property sells, oftentimes that sale price is disqualified because the property wasn't listed on the market. It was a private sale between 2 people. Maybe an abutter bought that commercial site for something. I can't use that because it's not reflective of true market value. And what we've seen here in the past with some big apartment type structures, a REIT, real estate investment trusts, will go in and buy it. Sometimes paying double what I have it assessed for. But that's not an arm's length sale because it's not like I'm buying my house off of Matt over here. Matt listed his house. It's been on the market 35 days. We come up with a price. Here you go, Matt. Thank you. That's an arm's length sale. REITs are looking to park money for other motivation, maybe to stop losses elsewhere, maybe to generate a slight income stream, over a certain period of time. So there's a lot of reasons why there's not a lot of arm's length commercial property sales, which is why we use the income approach. And as you know, particularly over the past few years, businesses have struggled. So the income may not be where it was pre-pandemic levels yet. Some property owners have had to give discounts, free rent, tenant fit outs to keep tenants. So that's why their values go up more. It's much more tied into the type of business they're in and the economy that we're in.
Thank you. Okay. So, thoughts from board members?
Karen? Sure. So we are not a board that can raise taxes, only the voters can raise taxes. As we all discussed, the last time we raised taxes together was the override back in 2018. So all this board can do is shift and apportion the burden. So in my experience, we have seen communities like Linfield, that's a great example. They were 1-to-1, no shift for like the longest time, and now they're at the max. I know somebody here lives in Beverly. Beverly looks like Wakefield. It's like $11 and $22. Very similar. Again, I'm gonna guess they're at their max. So because of the 10 years of residential assessments and values going through the roof, communities around the North Shore have been using this tax shift more than they used to in the past. I was on a tax classification for Reading in 2005. There were still a lot then, but not as many. So the landscape has changed dramatically. I would love to talk to this board about a strategy to get us to use this shift. This is an annual decision we make, and I know some people aren't clear on that this is a vote in the community, that this is a decision and a vote we have to make every year. We split the tax rate in 2018 and we've barely budged, so I would definitely like to talk to this board about a strategy to get us close to the max, like many of our peers and non-peers, in a reasonable time frame. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, not 20 years, not 30 years. And again, and the reasons for that are not to pit businesses against residents, but to fairly apportion the communal responsibility that we all have to redo water lines, to redo Haven Street, to all of the things, the high level of services that we want. So that's just a comment that I would love to, I don't know how other board members think about that, but we're at 1:05 now. You know, I would really like to request that we talk about a strategy that gets us very close to 1.5, which is our max. Is there any chance that would change? Are we always gonna be 1.5 as far as you know, no big changes coming?
I'm unaware of any community in my years of doing this that has ever had that drastic a shift in 1 year. I do know communities, actually, one of the communities I work in, Linfield, they had a great boom in new growth from Market Street. That was wonderful.
I mean, what I was really asking about, would you see Reading ever going from an allowed shift of 1.5 to 1.75? Because I don't know what that's driven from.
It depends, it's highly technical. What you have to do is, as you get to 1.5, you have to take a look at your levy ceiling. And every year that you come in under your levy limit goes towards your levy ceiling that pushes that up. That's why you see some communities with a shift rate of, say, 1.59. I thought communities could only go 1.5. Well, as they, not under tax, but leave levy on the table, that goes to the levy ceiling, which builds that up, that in future years can increase their shift capacity. So we have seen communities go from 1.5 to 1.75 just by doing that.
Okay, so I to my knowledge, we never under levy. Okay, thank you.
Others, Mark?
Thanks, Jackie. So Karen, I think you did a really nice job kind of outlining a lot of those pieces. I know that we've received some emails suggesting that the shift is somehow going to raise additional revenue. And just to be clear, that's not the case. The amount of revenue is the amount of revenue that we can raise. The issue is the shift. This board has been watching over several years what's the best way to manage this shift. I do think we need to get more toward the max that we're talking about for a variety of reasons. But one of the things I want to think about is that the community has businesses that are facing all sorts of difficult times right now. And it also has residents that are in a very similar situation, that are having trouble affording the community. I think, Vanessa, you highlighted a couple of specific examples as well. And look, we're 94% residential. That's what the community is. And I think it's important that we kind of respond to the needs of the community as it is, being very respectful of all who live and work in this community. And I think if you look at the rates of change that have taken place, especially over the last 3 years, but even over the last decade, I think we've been very respectful. I think we've been very careful. I think we've been thinking a lot about what this means, and how can we as a board be as supportive as we can be. I think at the same time, we do need to make a bigger shift than we have today. I think we, going to the max, and I know you weren't even suggesting that here, is not where we are. But I do think it's time that we kind of increase the shift at this time, appreciating that the economy is still pretty tenuous, that there are lots of costs and inflation that we're all facing, both as businesses and as residents. And we need to figure out what's a good balance that we can all live with to accomplish that. I think that one of the things that really struck me, that median commercial tax comparison slide that talked about if we were to stay at 1.05, it's actually a tax decrease to the median value commercial property, while the residential owners are going to face a substantial increase. And I think that's just not equitable and not right. I think that we need to figure out how do we best address this? How do we set a path to kind of exploring this to what probably are going to be higher numbers over time? And we have been discussing this over the last several years. I think where we are now at the 1.05 again is not there. I think that it needs to go probably toward a 1.2 for this year coming up. I think that is a more accurate reflection. I know that again, we've been very controlled over the last several years. I think it's time to kind of kick it up a little bit. I know the community's been having discussions about anywhere from 1.05 to maybe 1.35 or even 1.4. And again, over time, perhaps those make sense, but I don't think that they do right now. I think that we need to be both careful with what we're doing, but also clear in terms of the shift needs to be stronger. It needs to be more equitable. We need to support the residents and the businesses. It's not one or the other. It absolutely is both. So I find myself thinking that 1.2 is a number that I can be comfortable with.
Thanks, Mark. Chris?
Thanks, Jackie. And thank you, Victor, for your incredible presentation as always. I look at it this way, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Reading banned plastic bags a couple years back, and now some businesses are charging 10 cents for paper bags. Reading banned polystyrene recently, and now a couple businesses have raised their price and are charging for to-go packaging only specifically. And here we are discussing the tax rate. And what's going to happen because of this is that small businesses eventually, when the landlords and whatever, will end up passing the increase onto them. And in doing so, small businesses are going to either eat the cost or they're going to raise prices, cut programs like donating to the various schools, PTOs and everything. I have hosted dozens of various fundraisers throughout the community over the past year. And all of these businesses are giving back. And at the same time, what are we giving them as a board in general? I know before that I joined the board here, I didn't get anything for being a small business owner in Reading. In fact, I couldn't qualify for one of the programs that you were offering because of certain specific reasons that I won't get into right now. So with all the downtown construction that has been going on for the past year, which we can't control, but now we know that Lower Haven is going to be getting the same treatment in a year or two, which is great in the long term, but in the short term, it's going to hose everybody over there. What's often never mentioned during this is that what I brought up earlier is that we can't tax big box retailers higher, even though that they would qualify as a larger business and they more likely than not would be able to support the increases. It's the smaller businesses that are gonna get hosed because of it. And 75% of what Victor had up there on the slide, those businesses are under $1 million in Reading. 75%. And we're gonna be shifting all of the tax onto them. And the other 25% are just gonna be able to handle it because that's what they're equipped to do. The small businesses in here in Reading aren't equipped to be able to just saddle that kind of change that quickly. What also has been brought up, but everyone just seems to ignore it because it's the convenient thing to do, is that Reading is 6.3% commercial. And all of our peer communities, when they're peer communities, because today we feel like calling these peer communities, and tomorrow to fit a narrative, we're gonna fit other communities into this peer community bucket. I'll go down the list of the 6 of them. Linfield, that people like to bring up, has 17.65% commercial properties. North Reading has 11.71, Stoneham 17.27, Wakefield 18.6, Wilmington 41%, and Woburn 47%. That was on the slides right there. And Reading is 6.3%. So let's all catch up to all of them. How is that going to happen? It's never going to happen. Reading is close to less than double, if not, you gotta throw Woburn and Wilmington out. You can't be comparing that, yet they're on the slide. We will never be able to catch up to that. And bearing the brunt is the small businesses in Reading, not the big box stores that we'd love to be able to do. That people have pigeonholed me into supporting Home Depot and everything else that they wanna mention. They don't mention Fat Larry's, Zucca, Anya's, Venetian Moon that's having a fundraiser tonight for the Coolidge PTO. None of those get mentioned. It's always the bigger ones because Chris Haley is supporting Home Depot as opposed to supporting the true small businesses in Reading. And I do support Home Depot because they employ people in this town. Market Basket employs probably half of Reading High School in their business. So I can make the clear delineation between them and all the other small businesses that are gonna bear the brunt of this. And we're all privy to the one business in Reading that is gonna be leaving by the end of the year. And when it's announced, it is going to be an embarrassment for us that it is happening. And I'm not saying that it's because of the tax rate. Of course not. None of what we're about to do is because of the tax rate. It's just another barrier that people are gonna have to deal with. Increasing the rate here just cuts into their bottom line. It's very simple. So what Reading has to do is have policies and procedures that will make it where businesses wanna stay here. And when one of them goes, that we're more welcoming to somebody else coming in immediately and not sitting for a decade across the street. It's that simple to just go ahead and support our small businesses. It's very difficult for me to see what's on the horizon. And me, myself, because I own a business in Reading and I have a residence in Reading, really, in the end, I'm gonna pay either direction. But as I brought up at a prior meeting, that my condo, we went ahead and got rid of the recycling, not we, the board did, got rid of the recycling because the cost was too high for us to continue going with that. I disagreed with it, I would have paid the increase, but guess what? Everybody else didn't want to, so that's the way it goes. But at the same time, we're gonna go ahead and pass $900,000 at town meeting for new trash barrels that Bunratty's isn't gonna be able to use. They're gonna be paying their own trash fees. They're still going to. Is that equitable that they're doing that they're paying their own trash and recycling fees? And part of the tax rate that the taxpayers are paying is included in that? Of course it isn't, but we'll just dismiss it because that's the cost of doing business. Or the same thing with the new Killam School. We all wanna have the new Killam School, I agree. But Venetian Moon isn't gonna be having their grandkids be going to the Killam School because they don't live in Reading, yet they're gonna be paying the cost onto them. You can just go down the line and cite any kind of example that a business is getting taxed for something that they cannot use. And we're just supposed to dismiss that and not mention equity when it comes down to those kind of clear delineations between residential and commercial. Those are significant things that the taxpayer is gonna have to be able to pay, as well as the commercial ratepayer, except the commercial isn't getting any of the benefit from any of those. It's mentioned way too many times to count, but there has to be something done that is gonna stem the bleeding of what small businesses in Reading truly have gone through. So I hear that our tax rates have gone actually down year after year, that Jackie, to your point that you brought up, other than the blip with the override. Our tax rates have actually gone down year over year over year. The issue is that our home rates have exploded. And that's the big determining factor for me, is that it's gone up in the course of a year over $130,000. But for commercial, it's kind of iffy according to Victor, that's only gone up by $11,000. I could put my house on the market right now for $1 million and walk out of this meeting 10 minutes later and already have an offer $100,000 over asking. No small business owner in Reading is going to get that. Stuff's been vacant here for eons. Even where the for lease sign is peeling off on one of the businesses down on Main Street. That is the clear difference. I know you don't want to leave Reading, but if you were to sell right now, you're going to make $130,000 over what you would have did last year. That's 13 years worth of taxes, all in the course of 1 year. And that is why the rates just keep going the way that they're going. They're going down, but you're paying more because your house has gone up significantly. And I just want to end with, I've seen other things mentioned about seniors not being able to afford, et cetera. I appreciate that Reading does have the senior circuit breaker. That is also left out of the equation conveniently, that people fail to mention that as well, that we're leading the way, that other communities that Victor had mentioned want to be able to adopt that. And it's good to see that the state is going to be doubling that cost. But it comes down to, if we go ahead and raise this rate, what is going to happen in the future? It's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be the next week. The rates of things in Reading will increase proportionally, and maybe even go over it because they see what's on the horizon. And if you want to be part of that, that's your right. But to me, seeing a decrease of $543 over here, to me, doesn't sound as bad when you can go ahead and sell your house tomorrow for an easy $130, just to cover the cost. It's just, these numbers do not add up at all, especially when you scale them out. To go to 1.75 potentially in the future, you're gonna have to ding a commercial business for like $10,000. Absolutely not. So, thank you, Jackie. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Carlo?
Yes, thank you. A lot of things were said. I just want to share a quick note from Nick Face, owner of Empower, who wanted to come, and I asked his permission just to read his message, how difficult it's been for him lately for staffing. And he owns two businesses, one in Reading, one not in Reading, but a lot of Reading people use his other sports-related business. But so he's working alone in the store most of the day, and then goes to attend his other business in the afternoon, and is working many long hours like a lot of small businesses do. So I just want to mention that Nick wanted to be here, but he is going through what many people have said in our emails that we received. In the audience, I would give anything to go back to 2019 or even 2020. Not the COVID part of 2020, but pre-supply chain, pre-labor shortage, getting your inventory at all. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I said last year, and I forgot I said it, and I'm glad I remembered, that I hope 2023 is better, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be worse, and for small businesses. And unfortunately, I was right. 2023 is far worse than 2022 as far as costs go, labor, people calling in sick. It's just, I've never seen it. I've been self-employed for over 30 years. I've never seen anything like this, and all my colleagues would say the same, even if you've been in business for only 5 or 10 years. There's nothing like it. So with all that said, I was very disappointed that a member from FinCom put in writing that we're long past COVID. Businesses are good now, basically, I'm paraphrasing. They should be able to take any split that we decide to do, because things are good now, things are normal. And that was very insensitive of a finance committee member, Joe Carnahan, who should know better, A, to put that in writing, and B, not know what's going on. If you go out to eat, if you go to Market Basket, if you go anywhere, add 20, 30, 40%. Our packaging costs have doubled in 3 years, doubled. I would get a price increase maybe every 1 or 2 years, maybe, on packaging. Now they've doubled. So that just gives you a glimpse, and no one needs to feel bad for any of us that own small businesses. But if it was just this, I guess, I wouldn't be happy with any big shifts. Obviously, I've been attending this meeting for over 15 years, and I'm always going to support small businesses. But is anyone that spoke in the audience about residential their tax bills going up? Are they going to be the ones to complain about the CPA? If we institute a CPA, when our taxes go up, are they going to be pro CPA or against CPA because our taxes are going to go up? Are the small, if the bid goes through, that's another burden. So it's not just one thing, like Chris said. It's not just one thing. It's many things. So I am not going to say I don't support a slow, gradual increase, like Victor has mentioned time and time again. So I am, I have to be sensible, right? I have to be sensible to the seniors, sensible to the residents at large. But our commercial rate has been going down since I've lived here quite a bit. I think when we first moved here was 8 or 9% commercial, and now we're well below 7. So the peer community stuff, yeah, we have to compare. Obviously, 1.5 obviously is very drastic. Now, or even in 5 years, it's a very drastic difference in the tax shift. So I always advocate for no split at all. I think that's unreasonable, but I do not want to see 1.2. I don't want to see 1.3. Obviously, I'm okay with the small shift, but I wish I had better news from the small business community. But it's pretty dire out there. Really dire. Our rents are going up, our utilities are going up, and that's for residents too, obviously. Utility bills, we're very fortunate in Reading to have RMLD, obviously, but if you don't live in a municipality that has that, your electric bill went up this year. My electric bill sometimes is more than my rent at the chocolate factory. It's really hard to imagine. So, I could go on and on, obviously, of the struggles of everybody, but, we all want to stay in business. And Chris said it well, that, we don't pick a town based on their rate. We pick a town based on foot traffic, parking, accessibility, what are the businesses in town that complement us. We're not going to leave or come to a town based on a split, but to keep burdening these small businesses, I don't want to say it's not fair. We have to do it slowly and methodically. I'm all for a plan. Obviously, I would love to say no shift, say at 1.5, but I think that would be unreasonable. I'm in Chris's situation. We don't own the retail store anymore, but I'm a mixed use property owner and a small business owner. So we get it on both ends. My taxes have gone up, but and like Chris said, from 2020 to 2023, you own a decent single family home, you're making a minimum of $200,000 more. Minimum of $200,000 more. Commercial property owners don't have that luxury. So I don't buy that argument. We moved to Reading, the taxes are high and the values have stayed high. We did well during the recession and we exploded after that. So I don't sit well. The argument doesn't sit well with me that residential taxes go up and it's not fair. But your home value went up $200,000. So you can take a home equity loan, you can do work to your house, and we can't do that as small businesses. So to me, that argument doesn't hold water, unfortunately, and that's a matter of opinion, and that's just mine. I value all the discussion tonight, but we're at 1.05. I don't know what's reasonable. I'm not sure how the vote will go later, but I'm okay with a small increase. I'm not going to say the number right now, but I don't mind a small increase. But I just want everybody on the board to be sensitive to both. Like Mark said it really well. Mark thinks a lot of things through, and he said it very well. This is not residences versus small businesses. It's not left versus right. It's kind of what's trying to be fair to everybody. And slow and gradual is fair. I'm going to use Victor's words. Victor does a lot of great work for us in other communities. Slow and steady wins the race sometimes, and I would fully support slow and steady. And that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlo. So now that I've been doing this for a little while, and I saw this with the water rate vote, and I experienced it now with this vote, the more I appreciate the wisdom of us reviewing this every year. Because the fact of the matter is, all five of us, like everyone else, sees the world, sees the economy through our own experiences, our own businesses, our own professions, and our own communities, who we know in town and what we see. I think this vote every year forces us to have a little bit of humility in terms of strategy, because while it's all, I think, a great goal to have a strategy and have some long-term vision, the fact of the matter is that all five of us are running relay races in our seats that will, result eventually, sooner or later, in us passing that baton to another member of the board in the future. Sitting here making these same decisions in an economy and being affected, just like the five of us are, by what we see and what we experience. And so, like Mark has mentioned, we've heard from a number of business owners, we've also heard from residences. And, we talk about kind of the paucity and really the almost ridiculously small amount of that small commercial exemption and how that's essentially baked into state law. We also hear from Victor potentially some good news about an opt-in of a senior tax circuit breaker, but the state giveth and the state taketh away. One of the other things you may have seen in the news about the housing bond bill that the Healy administration released last week was a proposal to allow communities to implement a transfer tax on sale prices of residences over $1 million. So this bill, if passed by the state legislature, would allow another tax, essentially making home prices all that more expensive. And so I see that as a potential headwind for residences. I read in the Globe yesterday that homeowners insurance rates have gone up 25% in the past 2 years. I see that as another headwind. And again, fully admit that I'm biased by the fact that I'm not a commercial property owner. I was never a commercial property tenant, but I am a homeowner, and I do see this. I see the increases. I see the increases in delays and cost in finding vendors to help us with repairs that we need in our home. So oftentimes with stuff like this, when I'm facing something that's a really difficult decision, and when I'm hearing from a lot of different sides, I try to think of, first and foremost, what is fair for the most amount of people. And I'll have to tell you that when I looked at these charts, and Victor, as always, gives us a wealth of information to chew on, and every one of us looks at it in different ways, with my lack of knowledge about the commercial environment, I thought to myself, well, what would be fair and incremental at a minimum would be to see what would be the least amount of change for commercial property owners while still giving a little bit of relief to the residential taxpayer. And I arrived through that chart at the 1.1 level, which would result in a reduction of $69 in the average commercial tax bill, and which would result in an increase in $360 in the average residential tax bill. Do I think that's perfect? No. Do I think that's gonna make people throw a party or a parade or congratulate us? Absolutely not. There's none of that here in this vote. Except perhaps if we kept it the same or even removed the split. But do I think that that's the most appropriate path to take in light of uncertainty, in light of what we're hearing with these different perspectives that, yeah, our housing values have increased so much. And yes, of course, it's a difficult environment for labor, for supply chain. But again, because we're doing this every year and because I think there's some wisdom that those of us, who, formed the charter, that, formed our form of government have and have implemented, and I'm thankful for that. My view, and it's one that I've been chewing on for the past couple of weeks, is that a 1.1 is fair. And again, not gonna make anyone happy, not gonna be a parade, but, this is probably one of the most important votes we take. And I think it's one of the votes that we need to have a little bit of humility that, we have our views and we have our experience, but that represents a small slice of the whole of what our town experiences. So that's where I'm at this moment. So.
Thank you, Jackie, that was well said, thank you.
Can I just ask, from my notes, the median commercial property owner has not seen an increase in taxes in 3 years. And so I don't see how another year of no increase is fair. And I was happy to hold the rate steady. In hindsight, this just makes this decision more difficult, but I voted to hold the rate steady for 2 years during COVID. And this board also voted to reduce liquor licenses for 1 year during COVID to support our businesses. So I'm, as painful as it was, because all of our residential tax rates are so much higher now, you can see it in the documentation, it seemed like the right thing to do. So I'm having a hard time thinking that 1.1 is fair to give more discounts. I'm looking at the 1.2 level that Mark mentioned, and granted, again, let me repeat that, a number of residents have asked for 1.3, 1.35, I think there was a 1.4 thrown out. That's too crazy. Even knowing that every one of these business expenses that we've been talking about, whether you're sponsoring something, giving something to a charity, the taxes that you pay, they're all tax deductible. Let me just throw out a couple numbers for you. So there's a wonderful ice cream and sandwich shop on Haven Street, and it's an easy one to look at because there's only a single business in there. The assessment is $446,700, which is half of the median commercial value. So, at say 1.2, they would see an increase over 1 year of half of that, 872. They would see an increase of just over $400. So I am a small business owner too. I have experienced all of the same increases in everything. Gas goes up, I drive a lot of miles. Everything I'm forced to pay has gone up. So, but I also know it's all tax deductible. And so that takes the sting away from it a little bit. Some other numbers that I've looked at. So there's a wonderful bagel business on Main Street that everybody knows that just did a recent addition. Been in Reading a really long time. In Reading, their tax assessment, their annual tax bill is between $11,000 and $12,000. They have a nearly identical outlet in Peabody on Route 1, and they're paying $31,000 there. And I can imagine what they're saying in their annual business reviews. They're like, thank God we're getting a good deal in Reading because these other people are asking a lot of us. They're literally virtually identical. I can give you another example. There is a very large bank on South Main. also at the median commercial value, around 800, I think they're at 840. So again, they're paying about between $11,000 and $12,000 in taxes. They have a Wakefield branch. They're paying $33,700 in Wakefield, because Wakefield has a much larger shift in place. But it doesn't matter. It's a cost of doing business. They are not going to leave Reading. They are not going to leave Wakefield. Wakefield has plenty of banks. Peabody has plenty of bagel shops. I can't keep voting for tax policies that are not fair to residents. And Chris, you make a great point that we have all seen our building values ostensibly rise. And what I've seen as a realtor for 20 years, I've seen many commercial properties have very low assessments for any number of 1,000 reasons that I don't want to get into that Victor could explain to us, and then turn around and sell for millions of dollars that more than they were assessed. So again, they've not been paying they've not been paying one-to-one, tax burdens along the way. But they also, to your point, they also get a huge payout at the end, bigger than a residential, because correct me if I'm wrong, you are required to assess residential values 10% above or below what you perceive the market value. And if they come in and argue within those tolerances, you're like, I can't help you.
What I try to do is, for all the properties that sold last year,
Yep.
I have a median assessment to sales ratio of 95% of what they sold for.
95, okay.
Some are gonna come in at 80, some might come in at 120 for a variety of reasons that may not have been disclosed in the sale, but
Yep.
95 is where we try to be.
Okay, 95, thank you. So I would, we've heard several suggestions. I'm really not comfortable at 1.1. I don't understand. We can't continue placing extra burden on residents. I'd much rather see something closer to 1.2. And again, understanding that because these are paid by businesses, they are tax deductible, so 872, even if your assessment is that full share, is not gonna be 872. Sorry, it will be, if you're assessed at about $800,000, and some small businesses have very small shops, they're not gonna see an 872 increase, they're gonna see a few $100s. And that's what I think is important for me to sleep at night, knowing that small businesses, they're not gonna, for a lot of them will not see the shift. But will they see the same kind of incremental hundreds of dollars more this year than last year that I'm seeing in my business? Yeah, I'm okay with that, because I still see residents paying at least $300 more for the average residential value. And if we look at 1.15, they're closer. So my question for you, Jackie, is why wouldn't you think that maybe 1.15 might be fair? And this is just a general opinion, general question. Thanks.
And just to respond to that, Karen, I appreciate that, and I'm looking at the chart of the, what the median differences would be on page 23 of the packet, and while I do see that the 1.15-ish results in sort of a, equal increase, I'm not there, because I frankly, from my understanding, from what I hear from Victor and from what I've heard from business owners, the reduction that they're currently experiencing, or the reduction that they would experience if we kept at this rate, I don't have enough of an understanding about how that gets absorbed or not absorbed. I also appreciate the fact that the majority of the businesses that we're talking about here are not Home Depot. And I'll just say right off the bat, we did not hear from Home Depot or Market Basket or, name your big box stores to the extent we have them. We heard from small business owners. And I appreciate the fact that in a town like Reading with a small commercial base, we have certain advantages, because we have a great community and a walkable downtown, but we have some challenges. And so I'm trying to start with the fact and with the recognition of what I don't understand and what I don't know about commercial businesses, and also the uncertainty that I think they face year to year. So that's why I arrive at 1.1. Chris?
Thanks, Jackie. What you just said there and what you said previously, I don't even know how to put into words how much I agree with you compared to the way that I explained my viewpoint on this. But I'm in real time trying to process how proud or happy I am that you're seeing things from a fair point of view. That not going to one extreme or to the other, or just keeping things the same. I think that if we were negotiating the different rates, et cetera, coming to that number would be fair and equitable for everybody based off just the chart that's in here. I would prefer it to be on lower, but we're not always going to get what we want. Residents might not be happy, businesses, we're not going to please everybody. But it's the fact that you're willing to negotiate down to that kind of rate for me just shows that I think you get it. And I've explained it before, I'll say it again. I have a dozen vehicles in my fleet that I have to pay excise tax for, that I have to pay commercial tax for insurance, et cetera, which has, you said 20%. I don't even know what the figure it is, but I do know that the person across from my office is the one that handles it. So I keep it local at least. But still, those numbers have skyrocketed, and that's just on vehicles alone. I could get into anything and everything else of what I have to do, but there's no time for that. For me, I'm fine with the 1.1 as well. I think it's fair for everybody. We're not going to please anyone, and we're going to be arguing over $8 or something at this point, which, as I explained, perhaps this might contain any future increases that businesses are going to have to do, because there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction. And I think this is a good good faith effort, just showing that it's not that extreme. And hopefully we don't get to 1.5, because I explained when you extrapolate these numbers out, no one would ever go with, if it's at 1.75, that's like $8,000 for residential to be like $80 increase or something like that. No one ever bets $7,000 to make like $80. Those kind of things don't happen. Yet these are the numbers that we're dealing with here. So I'm fine with the 1.1. I think that it's fair coming up from the 1.5. So I appreciate everything that you said. I really do.
Mark?
Thanks, Jackie. So folks, I'm gonna make an argument for 1.15, and I'm gonna tell you why. In the 1.1 scenario, the average residential taxpayer is looking at an increase of $350. And the median commercial is looking at a decrease of $69. And that doesn't feel right to me, number one. Am I reading that correctly, Victor?
At 1.1.
Yeah.
Residential increases 360, median commercial decrease 69.
Sorry,
At
360.
1.15, it's 326 on the residential and an increase of 397 on the median.
Got it. Which to me seems more reasonable here. I've got kind of two concerns. One is just kind of the equity sharing. I think it'd be nice to have those numbers to be similar. But the other part is that every year we need to have this discussion. I agree with you. I think that's spot on. We need to see what's going on. I don't know that in 2025 the world is going to be completely different. I don't think it's going to be a sudden turnaround. And I think we've been very meticulous and guarded in how we do the shift. I think that we're not careful, we're gonna be careful and guarded and not really do it. And I that's one of the reasons why I think just slightly more makes some sense here. I think it's on the path. I think that the dollars we're talking about are very modest. I think it's much more equitable, just in telling the story, that the numbers are almost the same in terms of the change in those bills. That one, that's the number that feels right to me in terms of taking it forward. I would love for have the five of us agree on a number to use. And a lot of the thinking that we've all talked about. I think we've done it in a great way so far. At 1.1, I'm not sure that I can get there. I'm just feeling that that's not the right number. And I'm 1.15, one of the questions is, would I be feeling better about it? And the answer would be yes, absolutely I would. I did suggest 1.2. I think, we are gonna need to get there at some point. I think 1.15 is the right direction for this year. I think it's fair. I think it's not an overly large burden on anyone, but in fact, it's a much more equal burden. So I'm gonna make the argument, and I would certainly support a 1.15.
Jackie?
Yes.
Oh, hi, thanks. It's hard for me to sit here when Karen claims she's a small business owner and she's not advocating for small businesses. Unless I missed something about her and Steve, Karen is a 1099 real estate agent. And every year she says she's a small business owner, yet she just spent 5 minutes going against small business owners.
You're getting attacked. This isn't okay.
I'm using your words, Karen.
Do you wanna look at my profit and loss statement? I mean, I don't know how, it's not my role to convince you, and we're off agenda here.
No, we're really on agenda because you claim you're a small business owner.
I am.
Advocating against small businesses. It's kind of counterintuitive.
On my tax.
Small businesses aren't good for each other. I'm speaking, thank you, I'm speaking, thank you.
Carlo, sorry, Carlo, I mean, we can speak, we've got the freedom to speak how we want to here, but I think we're having an honest debate about, what's the right policy of the shift here, and I don't think it's helpful or effective to, to bring in sort of the details of the five of us and, what we do in our day jobs, because for this purpose, we're all the same, and we've heard from all of you, we've heard from you and Chris and Karen of, your experiences in the business world, and we appreciate that. But I'd like to try to keep this into a debate about policy, because.
Oh, thank you, it's just really frustrating, I appreciate that, thank you, it's really frustrating.
Do you have any other thoughts, Carlo, on the policy issues here?
No, I am glad you spoke last, to be honest with you, as customary is for the chair to speak last. And, I know you thought about this from both angles, I guess, or all angles, I should say. But, I would always love to see no increase, but I am very comfortable with 1.1 and start talking about a path, to get, I don't want to say extremely higher, obviously, but to get a path of year to year, have this discussion, and as the boards previous and as the boards in the future will have. But, I don't love 1.2. I don't even want to think about 1.3 or the other bottom numbers are on that chart. But I think 1.1 is a fair start to go, and next year we can revisit this again. And I tend to agree with Mark, unfortunately. But I'm not going to predict it, but yeah, we got a long road ahead of us to dig out of this post-COVID world or semi-COVID world we're living in right now. The labor aspect alone, I just can't comprehend. I really can't comprehend. But anyway, yeah, I'm okay with 1.1, and I would vote yes for that. Thank you.
So I guess before we move on to the formal discussion as part of the public hearing, do board members have, because we do, as Victor reminds us right at the top of his presentation, we do have are there 4 parts to the motion? Or 4 motions, but I mean, we talked a little bit about the small commercial exemption. And the fact that unfortunately it's really not helpful. And, it'd be a great question, and I think a timely one, given the fact that the state legislature is looking at a housing, or the housing bill. Maybe it's something that we can ask our delegation, but do we have other questions or comments about either the selection of a discount for open space or the granting of a residential exemption? No? Okay. Yes.
I would just be fine with leaving the status quo in those others. I don't think any factors have really changed. That way, convince me that we need to take a different approach with those other factors.
I agree. All right, so do we have a motion?
And just to be clear, the motion is for, I'm sorry, so there are 4 pieces to the motion,
Yeah, right, we should close the hearing first, yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah, so do we have, before we close the hearing, and we had a number of commenters during public comment, do we have anyone else who would like to speak, who has not spoken? Okay, Caitlin, Fidel, anyone on Zoom? Okay, so is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Move that the select board close the hearing establishing the FY 2024 tax rate.
Second.
Okay, thank you. And so we'll go a voice vote, because we do have a member remote. Carlo?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Jackie, yes. Okay, we're 5-0 to close the public hearing. And so in terms of any further discussion among board members on this, I think we're yes.
I'm good, I was shaking my head, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
How do you want to run the vote? In other words, there are 2 numbers that are mentioned so far. Which one do you want to take first?
Yeah, you can take the, let's take the 1.15 first. So is there a motion for a 1.5 sales factor?
Yeah, sorry, and the vote is taken on the opposite end, so on the MRF that was on the slide. So it would actually be a vote, which is the equivalent, but it would be a vote for 0.989925.
Okay, what is that, can you explain what that
Yes.
means?
That is what shifts the tax burden to the 1.15. Technically, that's the number that needs to adopt it.
Okay,
That needs to be adopted, yes.
for a 1.15?
Yes.
Okay,
For 1.15.
And we will supply you with any other
okay,
minimum residential factor you
thank
need.
you.
And you've carried it out to 4, but you're okay with 0.989925?
6 digits is what,
6 digits, got it, okay.
Was that the last year catch-up that we had to do? Was it 6 digits?
we yelled at the state. Why'd you take 6 digits away when you still want them?
Alright, so that's the last, where is it? A residential factor, that's what I'm doing? Okay. Move that the select board adopt a residential factor of 0.989925 for fiscal year 2024.
Thanks, Karen.
Second.
Okay, so we'll go, and this is a voice vote again, Carlo?
Thank you, I'm sorry, this is for 1.15?
Yes. The equivalent, yeah.
Yes, the equivalent.
Okay, no.
Karen?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Chris?
No.
Jackie, no. Okay,
We need a new factor.
All right, and it's on the other side of the page.
Just give us a flip.
Okay,
Make sure that that's,
okay.
yeah, it's different. Okay.
So may I ask, is there any wiggle room on this board to to make a good faith contribution on the part of commercial property owners, we have the choices of $20, $116, $212, and $309 versus another discount, the fourth year in a row of a discount. Like, their rates are going down. And you yourself explained that your homeowner's insurance is going up 25%. All of our grocery bills are all going up. So, you know, could we entertain, 1.14? Could there be some movement? That would ask, a median commercial property owner, somebody with a property worth $800,000, to be okay with a $309 increase, which is still less than what the residents are gonna be asked to pay, which is $326 for the average value. I mean, we have options.
We do, and well, go ahead, Chris.
I would say if the small commercial exemption made sense, if that was in there, I'd be more apt to change numbers appropriately. But I think from going to 1.05 to 1.1, it gives us wiggle room in the future to increase or decrease rates accordingly. I think that it might be a savings of $69 on the commercial thing, and if you're focusing on that, I think that I've already outlined all the other fees and everything else minimally that businesses have to incur that we're getting as residential included in our tax rate. So when I see apples to apples, we are not apples to apples with commercial. There are certain things that they do not get that residents do get. That doesn't change. It will never change. And for anyone to think that it's on the same playing field, you are wrong, because you cannot give me anything else where it's going to be correct at the other end. Absolutely not. I think 1.1 that Jackie had mentioned originally is extremely fair. It's higher than I was willing to go coming into this, but it's not the Chris Haley tax rate. It's whatever the board feels comfortable with. And I believe that 1.1 is the correct rate that's truly fair within the current 5 members here. But thank you.
And, Karen, for my part, I appreciate, the effort to approach the numbers so that there's an equal increase among residences and commercial. But again, I think my first view on this, in light of what we've heard from residences and businesses, is to be as incremental as we can be on this, right? So I'd like to stick to 1.1.
So you wanna, for the fourth year in a row, you think it's fair? Because I know you guys have both explained to me why you think this is fair. I'm still not hearing it. I'm still not hearing why it's okay for residents to have all these expense increases and have their rates go up significantly. But it's fair for businesses to have expenses and give them a discount. It doesn't compute for me. But let me share, I'm really glad we have the senior circuit breaker, but I need to share some numbers. 27% of our population of 26,000 people is 7,000 people. Now we have seniors at all income levels, but so we only give the credit to 225 seniors. Those are the most desperate. Those are the most vulnerable seniors. So I can't feel comfortable that, the senior circuit breaker has taken care of all of the senior problems. I've done my job. I haven't done my job. That's 225 seniors out of 7,000 seniors. And I knocked on doors last year and they told me, I don't know how long I can afford to live here. I'm probably not going out to eat as much as I used to because I'm paying my grocery bill. We know the food pantry need is up 30%. We just heard that. I know I've spoken with the superintendent and he couldn't give me actual numbers, but he confirmed that the number of families seeking various waivers for athletic fees and other student fees at the high school is up significantly. I had the opportunity to speak with one of the board members of the St. Vincent de Paul organization here in Reading. Their demand is way up. The only people I didn't get to ask was RMLD. How many people have reached out asking for waivers on their electric bills? And one of us mentioned, and I don't remember which one, about, or it would have been one of the audience, about the people that are silent, the people that are hurting and being silent. And so I'm not convinced this is fair. It's been 3 years since there's been an increase in the median tax bill. But for the Reading residents, for seniors, I can't even tell you what the amounts are. I don't have the amounts. Last year was smaller than the year before, but it's $400 easy. And we have in front of us a very expensive school, and right behind that, a much-needed senior center. And we're gonna be asking these residents to go to the polls and vote for these significant tax increases. In 2020, I seem to recall that my tax bill jumped $750 in 1 year just for the school. I don't know what it'll be going forward, which is why I think it's so important to start correcting this imbalance now. And again, we're not talking about a lot of numbers. What business in this room, what $803,000 property owner in this room couldn't afford $212 this year? If you're that close to the edge, your business, you're already out the door. And somebody else already commented, where are you going? Everybody else is more expensive. So, I would just ask for a little more help for the residents, for the families that are struggling, for the seniors. And not a further discount of $69 for the 4th year in a row.
Thank you, Karen. I do acknowledge the fact that this would be the 4th year of discounts. I also see a $69 discount for a whole year of the average commercial property owner as being fairly de minimis. And I see the increase of, $24.
$20.
Or no, $34 for the average residence, as being in effect, yeah, I mean, I agree, it's another hit to the residences, and we're by large a residential town. But again, I think that commercial base is one that we wanna preserve. And I don't, do I think that the 1.1 is gonna make or break any businesses here? No. But do I think it sends a message that we're continuing an incremental approach? Yeah, I do. And so I would like to stick with that. So with that, is there a motion?
Yes. That is a number, yep.
Move that the select board adopt a residential factor of 0.993284 for fiscal year 2024.
And that is equivalent to 1.1.
Thanks, Karen. And I second that.
I don't think that was the correct number.
Yes,
Why am I looking at 99.32836?
decimal points off in my presentation.
Round to 4 at the end, 36 to the.
Yeah. 6 digits.
Okay, so
So Karen made the motion and I second, so we'll go through the vote.
If you have a quick discussion.
Sure, quick discussion, yeah.
I'm really torn. I do not support 1.1. I would love to see us unanimous and I am not sure I'm gonna be able to. It would be great to, but I'm not sure I'm gonna get there. I'll know in just a few seconds.
Okay, yeah. Yes.
Thanks, Jackie. I think that I would like to add that Reading is a small town, and in order for us to stay a small town, it relies upon our small businesses. And this is a good faith effort showing that we're being reasonable for them to stay, to feel supported, as well as to encourage future businesses to come here as opposed to elsewhere. I think it's a great place to start a business. Specifically in the downtown is pretty incredible, and that is why, one of the reasons why that I relocated mine to here. So if we truly want Reading to remain a small town, then we're gonna invest in our small businesses. Otherwise, what's gonna come in behind them is a bigger business, or they're gonna sell the building, knock it down, put up a high-rise, and we'll all complain about it. And then what goes in there is bigger burden on the schools and everything else. You're gonna scale it out. That's the way that it's gonna go. So I'd like to keep our businesses here and encourage others to join them. So I'm supporting the 1.1. And that's what I got. Thank you, Jackie.
Okay, ready for a vote? Carlo?
Are we voting now?
Yes.
Okay, yes, please.
Karen? No. Okay, Mark?
No.
Okay, Chris?
Yes.
And Jackie, yes. So we passed 3-2.
And there's 2 more votes you gotta take.
Yep, okay. Okay, so we have done that one.
So we're gonna do the open space and the small commercial exemption
That's right. And the rest.
And residential.
In residential.
and not adopt.
Right.
Not adopt, yes, okay. Move that the select board not grant an open space discount for fiscal year 2024.
Second.
Okay, thanks Karen and Mark. Carlo?
Oh, wait, I'm on mute? Sorry, I'm sorry, what was it again? I'm sorry.
Open space discount.
Oh, no,
And not.
Right. I think you need to clarify.
Yeah, so the motion is, as it's written, is to not adopt the open space exemption.
oh, yes, sorry, yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Chris? Jackie, yes. We're 5-0.
Move that the select board not adopt a residential exemption for fiscal year 2024.
Second.
Okay, thanks Karen and Mark. And again, this is a motion not to adopt the residential exemption. So Carlo?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Jackie, yes.
Move that the select board not grant a small commercial exemption for fiscal year 2024.
Second.
Thanks Karen and Mark. Carlo?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Jackie, yes. We're 5-0. So, thank you, Victor, as always.
Thank you for giving me my marching orders. Have a good evening, folks.
Thank you.
And so I propose we take a 10-minute or 5-minute recess. We will reconvene.
7.5? Can we take a 7.5 minute?
We'll reconvene Thank you, we're back. So next item on the agenda is discussion and potential vote on scheduling the town election in April of 2024. So Laura Jen, welcome,
Hello.
thanks.
Thank you for allowing me to come before you tonight. So every 4 years, I come in and ask you to either take or not take a vote to move the local election, which this year would be April 2nd to the same day as the March primary, which would be March 5th. My staff and I have been discussing this, and we're all a little bit indifferent on whether or not we want it to move. And whether or not we would like for you to take the vote. So what I would like to state is, if you choose to take a vote to move the April 2nd election to March 5th, I'd just like you to be aware of a couple factors. And I'd also like to make sure that we take that vote as soon as possible so that we can do our planning and what we need to do as far as nomination papers and et cetera. My office will accommodate whatever the board decides. We can have the two separate elections, or we can do it on the same day. But a couple facts that I'd like you to consider in deciding whether or not you would like to move the April election to March. One is that combining the elections does not save a whole lot of money. At most, the maximum would be about $10,000. That savings is on the police detail and the setup. You only have one setup versus two as far as DPW and facilities. And the police detail, that's the only staff that we do not have to double. Combining elections yes, combining the elections does increase the local voter turnout. But one thing that I'd like you to be aware of that has come up since 2020 is with the vote by mail ballots, by combining the elections, we're gonna end up with a lot more ballots rejected than we normally do. Reasoning behind that is that when a voter requests a ballot for both elections, we send that to them in two separate envelopes, and a lot of them return them in the same envelope, and we have to reject those. Now, if we catch it ahead of time, by the thickness of the envelope when it comes in, we can reach out to the voter, but the majority of them don't get caught until election day. So that's just something to take into consideration, is that if you decide to combine them, we have to spend some time with educating the voters that they need to make, when they receive the ballots in two separate envelopes, they need to send them back in two separate envelopes. The election staff has asked on a regular basis. I've been doing this for 14 years. This is my third time coming to you for a presidential election. We've done two other combining elections for specials since I've been here, and every time the election staff tells me that this is ridiculous because of the amount of work that's put in behind it, more so the confusion that it creates. I will tell you though that we've successfully done it. The election staff has been able to pull it off. It just takes a little bit more education for the staff to be able to do it. And the one last thing to consider is that in March and April, it's difficult to get election staff as it is because the majority of our election staff travels to the south for the winter, and they're not back yet in time for the elections. So if you choose to combine them, I'm gonna ask for your help in getting election staff so that we can double the staff. One thing that was also brought up that I believe Fidel sent an email to you that came from town council is that if on the town meeting warrant, Article 1 is our election. It's been brought up in the past that if you move the election to March, that's more than 35 days from the day town meeting starts, that you have to have two separate elections. Somehow, we've always figured out how to pull it off so that it's on the same warrant. But I've suggested in the past that you move it to two separate warrants just because of the length of time that's between the two. That's not a big deal. I create the warrants for every local election. I can do it for this one as well. So that's just something to be aware of. whatever you decide as far as how you wanna do the warrant, it's up to you. I believe that's everything. Any questions? Mark? Sorry, I'm taking over the meeting, Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
It's okay, go ahead, Mark.
You mentioned that the Board of Registrars didn't really have a strong opinion. What were the discussions that?
So the Board of Registrars generally don't get involved in this conversation. This is something that's up to you as the select board. That's the way that the bylaw and the charter is written. I've never asked the Board of Registrars what their opinion is because they're generally not involved in the election by design. It's by the election staff. And the thing with the election staff is, the first one, you know, every time we do this, we get better at it. It's a matter of one, training to eliminate some of the confusion and to make sure we have enough staff. That's the biggest thing.
And then the other piece of data you gave us was that the last time it was done, it was a lot of work to do. But to your point that you just mentioned, you learn, you get better at it.
Right. The hardest, it gets harder every time we do this, mostly because of the vote by mail. You know, because it doubles the amount of ballots that goes out, it doubles the amount that comes in, it doubles the amount that we have to process at the polls, and it causes confusion. Believe it or not, it causes confusion with the voters. When they come in, they think they're coming in for the presidential primary. We give them 2 ballots and they're like, what is this? So that it does increase the turnout, but it increases the turnout because they're basically forced to take the local. Not that we force them, but I shouldn't use that terminology. But, you know, they feel like if they're there for one, they should go ahead and take the other.
And do you have any information on how much the turnout difference is? Is it a substantial amount?
So, the last time we had a presidential primary in a local election, it was in 1992, and the turnout difference was less than 20% between the local and the primary. What we have, I can look up the numbers, but I can tell you that the local election on its own average turnout is about 20%. Presidential primary average turnout is about 60%. So it's a huge.
Dramatic.
Yes. Very dramatic. Yep. And we do have voters refuse the local ballot when they come in for the presidential primary, which is their right.
One more question, if I could. What percent of the ballots came in last time by mail? Of the total turnout, of the last election, regardless presidential, whatever, our last election, so I guess this past April.
So I
What
brought my
percentage was-
laptop on purpose. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
Big?
As far as what came in vote by mail for the last election, it was pretty high. Yes, definitely. The vote by mail again started in 2022. It's now in effect for every election. And I'm sorry. Early voting started in 2016. In every election, it increases. But I can tell you that this year it's going to increase especially higher because the Secretary's office plans on sending out over 4 million applications to every registered voter in the state of Massachusetts. And that will include for the primary, the local election, the state primary in September, and the presidential election in November.
Sorry, one last question if I could. With the planning that the state is doing, so Reading's not the only community that's facing this dilemma or this potential decision, right? Is the Secretary of State giving any guidance?
The state does not give any guidance, and I don't know what other communities are doing as far as combining, except that the majority of them don't do it. But the majority of them don't have it as part of their charter or their bylaw. So that is more the reasoning why.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Looking up the numbers, but I can do both. Any other questions?
Chris.
Thanks, Jackie. I ironically watched the July 9th, 2019 meeting, and Bob was sitting one seat over, and Mark, you were sitting in Karen's seat during that meeting. And the biggest takeaway that I heard from it, that it increases more voter turnout and encourages more people to vote. There is cost savings there, which is always good to hear. I mean, I can't really think of a downside. I understand that more education might be required, or training, or whatever ends up being the case, but I mean, if anybody in Massachusetts that could do it, it's you, Laura. I have full faith that you're gonna be able to accomplish whatever we decide. It's like that for every single election going forward, and I don't see that ever changing as long as you're here. So I don't see the downside to combining them.
Carla?
Thanks, Jackie. Laura, I know you take a lot of pride in these elections. Do you have any kind of, I don't want to say an educated guess, but in your election staff, between, the volunteers and your staff in town hall, would you say, I'll pick an easy number, would you say that the people that come in and year out is greater than 50%, is greater than 75%? Because the people that I normally see there at the field house are the same people year in and year out. So do you get that sense that it's more than 50% of the same people, more than 75% of the same people?
Depending on, I would say definitely more than 50, probably close to more than 75. It depends on the election. The local elections tends to be the same people. The November election is when, the presidential is when we start pulling in new staff. So, but in April and March, it's generally the same people, other than those that travel to the south for the winter. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So those people travel pretty much every winter anyway.
Correct.
That makes me feel that makes me feel a lot better that it's the volunteers that come support the election. I know they get paid, but I call them volunteers because the pay is very nominal. That if you said it was under 50%, that would give me more pause. But I'd like to repeat 2019 and combine them to save a little bit of money. I mean, 10 grand is nothing. 10,000 is nothing to sneeze at. But I like the high turnouts. I think it's good for the voters, and so that's where I stand. Thank you.
Okay, others.
Yeah. So how is mail-in impacting our elections? Because it's permanent now.
How is it impacting it? Is it increasing the turnout? Some, but not by as much as you would think. So for the last election that we did, the local, in April of 2023, we had a total number of ballots cast, 4,638 ballots. Of the 4,638, 898 of them were mail.
It's almost like 20, approaching
So I don't know what the
25%.
percentage is there, but
And are you planning to do early voting as well, early in-person voting?
we have no choice.
You have no choice in that, so it's always mailing and always early in-person voting?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Which, if you're talking to our legislators, I'd love to see change. If we look at the numbers that we had in early voting at the last turnout, we had less than 50 for the total of 10 days that we were here open.
Okay, that's good to know.
It's rough. It's either early voting or mail-in.
Okay.
We don't need both.
Wow.
It's just,
50 people?
yeah, if I looked at the,
So I was one of 50 people?
pretty much, it was.
I didn't know it was that low.
There was-
That's ridiculous.
that was for the local.
You're in the 2% club now, Chris.
I am. Free trash pickup.
Now, I will say that that's different on a state election, that's higher on a state election, especially a presidential. We'll be busy for early voting for the presidential. But for local elections and primaries, it just doesn't make sense.
When did that change?
When did,
In-person early voting?
so early voting went into place in 2016. In 2016, the numbers were extremely high, because that's the only offer you had. It was either early voting or on the day of.
All right, so mail-in voting has torpedoed in-person voting.
Correct.
Okay.
It's just not worth the expense for both,
Correct.
is my opinion.
Every action is an equal and opposite reaction, Laura. It's not, it's Newton.
Sorry.
The November election will be a telling factor as to whether or not the vote by mail is gonna help with the increase. Generally, in Reading, we go around 80%. If we go above that 80%, with the vote by mail, then yes, it's gonna increase. It'd be interesting to see. I'd love it to see to go to 100%.
Other questions? Laura, I have a question for you. What was the impetus then for raising this? Was it the potential confusion or voiding of, multiple ballots in one mailing? Was it the staff shortage, both? I mean, are there other?
So, in the past, I've just mentioned the staff shortage, and then also the confusion that it adds to the staff. Because basically what you're doing is you're running 2 elections on one day. So you have 2 sets of staff within one precinct, and that tends to add a little bit of confusion with the election staff. As I've gone on through the years, I've learned the training perspective is what needs to go into place to fix a lot of that. But it just adds confusion. In this case of today, I'm more concerned about the ballots that are gonna be rejected. In the past, we've seen them come back in the same envelope and we don't pick it up until election day. Which means at that point, their vote is not going to count. Now, is that high enough that you don't wanna have 2 elections on the same day and say absolutely not? In my opinion, 1 vote being rejected is high enough, but that's just my job as an election coordinator to make sure that everybody's vote counts. Is it high? No. Is it increasing every time we do vote by mail and double elections? Yes. What can we do about it? Education. That would be something that I would just ask that you help out with the educating of the voters, is that when you receive the ballots in 2 different envelopes, sign them and send them back in a separate envelope. The other reason that they get rejected is no signature on the ballot.
And then you had also asked if we combine the elections for help with staff. Do you have an estimated or ballpark cost associated with that, or is that?
So the election staff itself is between $10,000 to $15,000 per election, and it'll be between $20,000 to $30,000 per election as far as cost.
Yeah.
It's just because that, again, we have to double the staff, so that doesn't decrease the cost of having the elections on the same day. The only thing that decreases is the police detail and the setup.
And I know this is outside of, strictly outside of our purview, but are schools closed on those? No.
No. I haven't looked at the school calendar, to be honest with you. I don't think they are. They usually only close for the November election.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Is it too late to ask them to close on March 5th? I think it's too late.
I think they'd have a heart attack.
Yeah, has it really been that much of an issue in terms of them being in at the same time?
The biggest issue is parking, is making, so on the election days that I've been able to get somebody from the schools to stand outside and say, you can't park here, then we're fine. It's a matter of watching where the kids park. They can't park around the field house on election day. That's the biggest issue. The November election, there's way too much of a traffic flow to have the kids come in there for safety purposes, safety reasons.
Did you wanna go back to having elections at the library?
We never had elections at the library,
Yeah, you did, like,
not since I've been here.
It was
In-person voting.
early voting.
Early voting I did.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm sorry, sorry.
okay. I was just joking
I was
anyway.
thinking-
I don't think you wanna do that. It's
On
just-
election day,
you did
absolutely
say
not.
it. Yeah. Well, yeah, Chris.
Just one more thing, Jackie, also referencing the July 19th, 2019 meeting. The board then discussed also about moving the election to a Saturday in May instead. And it was supposed to be added onto a future agenda, and it didn't, probably because COVID happened. So it was never brought up by Mark, the board that you were on. So I think that if we go ahead with combining them this time, the exact same thing, I'm gonna give the same speech that they gave. We'll add it to a future agenda to see about moving the future elections to a Saturday in May instead, is what would be easier for everybody, I think, right?
You're referring to just local election?
Yeah.
As far as our office is concerned, it doesn't matter one way or another. As far as voter turnout, some communities have their elections on Saturdays, and I've talked to some of the clerks, and it's their opinion that that doesn't increase turnout. But that was back in 2019 that I asked. Everything's changed since then.
That is for sure. But yeah, I mean, that's obviously a board decision. We can see about doing that. I just mentioned that because that's what was discussed back then, and it didn't transpire, so.
Just keep in mind during that discussion, that all town elections have to happen by the end of May. So if you decide to do it on a Saturday, please do it in earlier May.
Yes.
I think could be a good discussion. I suspect that that board back then wasn't thinking so much about mail-in ballots. I think the concern was that in March and April, you have a lot of people not in town. And mail-in ballots may be a reasonable solution to that possible. That's one. Actually, my real comment was with the ballots, state versus local, they'll be different colors, right?
The ballot will be, yes.
That'll be different
The
colors.
top part of the ballot will be different colors, yes.
Is there any way you can have envelopes and things of different
No.
colors also?
We have to use the standard envelopes that the state provides no matter what election. Now, with that said, an idea just popped in my head. We can mark the envelopes as to what ballot it is. That we can do.
So I think there's some things we could do to help.
Why isn't that being done in the first place? It doesn't say local or state.
It does in small print.
Oh. So
It
you can
does say
increase
that.
the font?
So I do a constant continuing education when it comes to training with the clerks in the elections. And we just did a training at the Reading Public Library. And one of the ideas that came out of that is there's a local town that actually prints up a huge label that says, please sign, and in red, and it's nice and big, which we're gonna start doing, because it gets more of attention. But I can put on that same label, local ballot only. So maybe that'll
seems really confusing.
It covers up the small print that nobody ever reads. But
Maybe you can demo it with us or something, because to Karen's point, it does seem, but maybe when we see it, it's completely different, so.
I'll give Fidel a couple examples and he can give them to you.
My blood pressure goes up filling out those mail-in ballots, because I'm like, I don't want my vote to not count. And like, they just seem like they have extra instructions, like an envelope and sign here and turn it over and don't put it in the wrong way.
Join the 50 people.
The only reason.
I probably was one of them, I don't remember, I probably
Embrace the
was,
50.
but I don't know. I
The
don't
only reason
remember.
why they get rejected is at a single election is the signature. Is the lack of signature on the envelope, which last time we did it, we put a little sticky note that says sign here, which increased the signatures.
The sticky votes, thank you,
Those
sticky
little,
votes.
yes,
Sticky votes.
and then when we have a double election, the ballot's being sent back in the same envelope. And more than likely, the voter is thinking they're saving some money by sending it back in the same envelope. More than likely, that's the reasoning behind it. But unfortunately, it has to be rejected.
And then cursing the town for wasting their money and recycling, yeah.
So it's a matter of education.
Is it postage prepaid on the envelope, or you
No.
have to put a stamp?
You have to put a stamp.
Oh, well, that doesn't make sense. Why
So
don't we-
let me clarify, when we send it out, it's 3 different envelopes. It's the envelope that we send it out in, that outer envelope. Inside there,
I see.
there's another envelope that it's like the white envelope, and then there's a whatever color that ugly orange is. It's the inner envelope. So the ballot has to go into that inner envelope, has to get sealed, has to get signed, get put into the white envelope, and then sent back to us. So if someone takes 2 of the orange envelopes and puts it inside of a white envelope, we accept that. It's when there's 2 ballots inside that orange envelope that we can't accept it.
You
Did I
lost
just-
me, but I don't know where orange came into play, because all we heard was white. So we'll just get the demo and we'll go with the demo instead, because that just seems, why aren't we doing prepaid postage already paid on these kind of things? I don't know, whatever. There's a
You know how
reason.
much money the town spends on postage
Oh,
for
I know.
vote by mail?
Yeah, and it is what it is.
And the state elections are pre-postage,
Oh, so it's just the town.
correct?
Okay, all right.
Are the presidential pre-postage?
Yes.
Yeah.
We should get a grant to get reimbursed.
Actually, we do get reimbursed for
All right,
quite a
see?
bit of it.
We're getting a grant.
Could I suggest maybe if we could maybe see, does that help us make
Oh,
a decision?
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would be inclined, putting them together, getting better turnout is the big plus. And the minus of these concerns about logistics. To me, I don't know, it would make sense to kind of see where we are and take a more formal vote on November 7th if we're gonna vote. And if we don't vote, just to be clear, everything stays the same as 2 separate elections. If we do nothing, that's an outcome that we could do, or we could vote, which would be to bring them together.
So just to make sure I understand, you wanna see what a sample of what's mailed out and what's supposed to be mailed back?
Yes, and if you could talk through a little bit more of kind of the what's okay and what's not, because I got a new understanding. So it sounds like it's the signature envelope that has to be distinct for each
Correct.
election. But to save postage, you could certainly put both of those into the white envelope.
Sure. You just can't put 2 ballots into the signature envelope.
It's the signature envelope that's the issue,
Correct.
and it would be postage prepaid in the white envelope.
You know, before I answer that question, I wanna verify that one.
So this is why it's worth a little bit more maybe.
Either way, if the postage is prepaid,
Everybody's gonna put them together.
I think that, I mean, Laura, does that work for your timeline in terms of, you know, coming back to us on the 7th with that demo and then us voting on the 7th?
Sure.
Okay.
I would just ask that we plan on doing a vote on November 7th and not go any later than that, simply because the town meeting members and local folks that are running for office like to start having their nomination papers in November. and I can provide that no matter when the election date is, but I need to know when the election date is. Does that make sense?
So
Yeah, I think-
I agree. Yeah, go ahead, Carla.
Thank you. This may be a good idea or not be a good idea, but I think it would behoove us to take a page from the school committee, who's made a lot of fun videos, but we could do a PSA. And I know someone in that room who takes great videos and has the equipment that we could do a video of how to mail in a ballot. And I think that would be great for the five of us and staff and Laura to be part of it, of course, but I think that would be great to engage the town that way, and we can all share it on social media, except Mark. And we can put it on the town website, and we can make a TikTok out of it and all this fun stuff, and I think that would be great. I could be wrong, but I think that'd be a great idea. Thanks.
And I'd be happy to work with the board to do that.
You put it on the website too for others.
All right. Well, thank you, Laura. So it sounds like we've got some consensus to put this on for a vote on November 7th. So we'll look forward to seeing your demo
Okay,
then.
thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.
Your TikTok.
Thank you, Laura. Okay. So, next item is select board appointment of a member of the Board of Registrars in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 50, Section 51, Section 20. And I see we've got Mr. McSweeney here in the audience. Thank you. We have a personal statement from you. Would you like to just come up, please, and say hello?
Hello, everybody.
Hi there.
Hi. And so you're applying as a member of the Board of Registrars. Can you just tell us a little bit about why you're interested in the role?
I'm a 40-year resident of Reading, and I'm a former political science history teacher. Always been interested in and lectured for years about the sanctity of the vote, the ways that you can mess with the sanctity of the vote, and the ways that you can redeem the whole system by standing up against it. I'm not an attorney, I'm a political science teacher, but that was my academic interest. I'm a member, as you well know, of the Reading Democratic Town Committee, and when there was a vacancy, I put my hand up and said I'd like to do that. And just to keep it simple, that's my story.
Thank you. Any questions from board members?
Thank you for being willing to do this.
Chris?
Thanks, Jackie. I guess in terms of clarification, so how did this get brought up in the first place, Val? Like, is there,
Laura can chime in.
how did this end up?
So we had a member of the Board of Registrars to take on the position of chair of the council on aging. Board of Registrars are not allowed to be a voting member of any other board or committee. So she resigned as a registrar. At that point, we need to replace her with someone from the same party.
So it's indifferent from 2021 when we did it, when we appointed everybody, I believe. So this is just a special within the term
Yes.
appointment?
Yep. And the motion expires in 2024 for that reason,
So that's the difference between
It's
the
to-
ones then.
to cover the remaining term.
So does that term then expire at the end of June next year along with the rest of the
June
volunteer?
30th, 2024.
boards? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Any
very comfortable.
Carlo, any questions or comments?
Can someone remind me who are the registrars now, please?
Chris Holmes and Tina Olson.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
And so just a follow up on that, is that one member from each party plus one unenrolled? Or,
This question gets brought up
Whoa,
on a
Jackie.
regular basis.
Whoa.
So the way the Board of Registrars is made up, it's made up of 3 members plus the town clerk.
Okay.
The town clerk is the only one that's not required to be a member of a party. If the town clerk is a member of the party, then the board needs to be balanced with 2 from each party.
Okay.
I'm a troublemaker and I'm not a member of a party.
Yep.
So I'm unenrolled, which means that we then have 2 members from one party and 1 from another.
I see.
In that case, it goes by the total number of registered voters. We have more Democrats in Reading than we do Republicans, so we have 2 and 1.
Got it. Okay, Chris?
What Laura said was technically true, but back in 2021, the ratios, Ivrea provided us a memo. You weren't on the board then, but she essentially said what Laura just said with there's more Democrats than Republicans, but that the makeup could still be 2 Republicans, 1 Democrat, 1 unenrolled. It doesn't, it's not automatic. But that doesn't have to do with this. It's just more of the clarifying of how it all came about.
Well, is there a motion?
Let's see. Move to appoint Michael McSweeney to the Board of Registrars for a term expiring June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Mark. So we'll go as a roll call. Carlo?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Jackie? Yes. We're 5-0. Thank you, Mr.
Congratulations.
McSweeney.
Thank you all.
Congrats.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Louise. Okay, next item, discussion on town manager screening committee and search process. And so before I turn this over, it looks like we started this in our packet, at least on page 38, but just a couple of updates that you've probably seen, but just to announce them. Last Friday, the RFQ, request for quote for a search consultant, came back, and the low bidder was Mr. Bernie Lynch, who the town worked with in the last iteration of this search. So we're looking forward to working with Mr. Lynch again on this. And so tonight, I'd like to talk through the makeup of the town manager screening committee and begin to set some dates and some timelines to help us meet our goal of an appointment by February 1st. And I'll just start by just laying out my thoughts on the screening committee, and love to hear other board members. So my view on it is that we certainly want to have a good, well-rounded committee of departments and boards and subjects that are likely to be top of mind for our new town manager. And so I'm thinking as follows. I think we should have 2 select board members, and I'll just state out front, I'd like to be one of them. I think it's a good idea to include town meeting moderator, again, Ellen Folds. I think it's important to have the town meeting moderator, because obviously town manager works very closely in the run-up and during the town meetings to run smoothly and to have an understanding about candidates' approach to those meetings, which are important and which are somewhat unique, and which some candidates might not have as much experience with, depending on where they're coming from. I also think it's important to have someone from the finance committee, as I think that committee has an important role in the review of all of our financial warrants and decisions. I'm not quite sure about the specifics on this, but I think in light of the fact that we have a major project coming up with Killam, I would like to see some stakeholder from the school community. I'm not sure who that would be in terms of school committee member versus Killam School Building Committee member, but I do think it's something to consider, given that that is a project front and center. I would like to see from the public safety community, Chief Clark, Police Department Chief Clark, as another person who's a resident and who has a lot of need to work with the town manager. And then that brings us, that's 6 people, and I think it would be a good idea to have at least one at-large community member, if not 2. And I'm aware and open to the fact that, you know, we have other departments and boards that are important for collaboration with this position, including but not limited to potentially planning or CPDC, potentially library. So I'm not stuck on 7 versus 9, but that's kind of my thinking and why. Kind of the what or the who and the why. So with that said, what are folks' thoughts on a screening committee? Mark?
Thanks, Jackie. So the screening committee's role, actually we should scroll back to what it talks about here. No, it doesn't say specifically, but a lot of it is, it's meetings to interview candidates, to narrow the field, to bring it back to the select board with a narrowed group. So it's working very closely with the search consultant. I think it would be great to have Fidel involved early on in the process, in particular, maybe even later on in the process, just to kind of give us some guidance as kind of an outsider to it. I actually think the makeup last time was excellent. And I would be hesitant to change very much on there. I know that having Chief Burns there, I know we wanted public safety was the point, so I think that works. I'm actually not so comfortable kind of saying, let's bring in the school committee, let's bring in this, let's bring in that, let's bring in the finance committee. I think everybody has a chance to talk with people. I think this is really a town function that we're talking about here, and I think that this group did a really nice job in doing that. I think having 2 at-large members was great. I think that there was some background in HR kinds of things also that I thought was kind of helpful to the process. I would very much also like to serve on the committee this time. I did not last time, because I think we deferred to the chair and vice chair, although it could work out that way this time, but either way. But I have been involved in this before. I would very like to be one of the folks representing the select board there. But that's kind of my take on so 7. I think this makeup was pretty good in terms of roles, if you will. That's my thought.
Jackie?
Yes.
You're muted.
Sorry. Can someone refresh me, please? Was Jean Delios part of this process last time?
No.
She wasn't a resident. She's not a voting member.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, just wanted to refresh my memory. I'm not sure. I kind of get the school committee part, but again, I don't know. It's good to have a diverse, search committee. I think I remember, almost everybody who was on it last time, but Alan. I don't know. Nothing against Alan, obviously, but for twice a year, I know it's a big job, but I think another department head would serve better for me. But again, Alan's great. Finance committee is fine. I don't know if we had that last time. I don't remember. I would like to see Chief Clark, and just to flip it. Chief Burns was on it last time, and go to Chief Clark, and then the at-large. 1 or 2. I'm not really indifferent to that. I think as long as everyone's a resident, 1 is fine. So, but I agree with Mark. Different backgrounds could potentially help from an HR perspective, but and of course, I also would like to be on the search committee. I was not on it last time, and I would love to be part of the process. I have more time. Last time I think I volunteered, but it would have been challenging for me last time. But now that I have more time, I think that would serve the five of us well. So I would like to throw my hat in the ring as well as one of the two. I think Jackie and I would work well together. I think the chair should be part of this process, the current chair. So that's my 2 cents for now. I don't know about the school committee one. I'm looking at this on the chart now. Yeah. So thanks.
Thanks, Carlo. Chris?
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the 2 select board members, the town moderator, Chief Clark, as well as finance, school committee member, and then 1 resident. We're all residents anyway, so it's, you already have that kind of aspect. But I think that with this accelerated timeline, we need people that are guaranteed going to show up, know already going in what the lift is kind of going to be. So for me, I'm fine with the 1 resident aspect. They're still represented, even though the other 6 are anyway. So I'm fine with what you had proposed. As for being on it, I'd love to, but I think the charter thing is going to be filling up a lot of my time, so I will respectfully bow.
It was a great committee last time. We had a great, deep hiring experience on the committee. We had the library director, we did have Chief Burns. Alan had requested to be on the committee that time, and so did very well. We had no problems with quorums. We had, as I recall, there were 2 longish days, and a number of other shorter meetings. So it's not a huge commitment, but I think they did a great job. I served on it as chair and as chair of the select board, vice chair of the committee. I am very concerned about the charter committee having only 1 woman on it. There's not enough diversity there. I am very concerned that we not let that happen with this screening committee. It is gonna be a mixed bag of applicants, and I would like that's not a good way to say it, but we're gonna have a variety of applicants, we're gonna have diversity. So I would like the committee also to have good diversity on it. And one suggestion I might have would be whether the deputy chief of police might be a good fit. She's been exemplary and a leader in town, so especially if we're struggling to find women to serve on the committee. She's not a resident? Okay, never mind, walk that back. Okay, never mind, sorry. It's a problem. So as far as the school committee goes, superintendent was more than happy to help us out and did a terrific job, and I was able to meet with him afterwards, and I think I would love to just keep that the same going forward. Anyone who would ask me if I enjoyed screening 40 applicants for this committee, including past select board members, and then having to tell 90% of them no, I thought that was excruciating, and I'm hoping we can find a better way to do this going forward, that we don't have to make residents go through that. So I appreciate the thought you put into this process already. Finance committee could be a good source. Library board of trustees, no. Well, depending on if we have the library director on there, or the library foundation potentially. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
Thank you. So I think in terms of like immediate next steps, all of this is obviously time sensitive, but it seems to me that the thing that's most time sensitive and, really the gating issue for us to move forward, we have another meeting 2 weeks from tonight. but if we post a volunteer, a request for volunteers, the volunteer opportunity, like the one on page 38, we need to post it for 15 days. So, I guess this is a question, I don't know the answer to this. Do we need to decide on the screening committee makeup before we post for the ex officio members? I mean, for the at-large community members? Or can we post for the at-large community members to solicit applications before we vote on the full screening committee?
I would say we probably have to have, whether or not we're gonna have one or two residents, that ends up being the issue.
Right.
But to your point, so we can't even make it by the next meeting because it's 15 days from today. So we'd have to have a special meeting, and then we don't have a meeting after that because of town meeting?
We do have a meeting on November 21st, during the second week of town meeting.
But how does this impact the timeline that we already put in place? Or like roughly?
Yeah, the consultant said that he would recommend that a screening committee is in place in December,
Oh,
early December.
and that still meets our whole timetable that we have in here.
That a committee is in place, so
Yeah.
interviewed, selected, appointed.
And it's
all
still February, whatever it was it February 1st is when we're looking to make a?
It hasn't changed, because
Okay.
what,
So, if I remember correctly, a lot of the upfront work was basically each of us working with the search consultant to make sure that the documents that were used were what we approved as a board. That's kind of the first piece. Then the search consultant does a lot of work and starts figuring out who the potential candidates would be and how all that works. None of this involves the screening committee yet. And so I think that's why the date to kind of have this in place isn't tomorrow. There's a little bit of time that you can do that work. I think it's really incumbent on us to make the timeline to get with Bernie and get him the documentation that we approve as a board.
Okay,
So we
well,
can go out and solicit.
and as I think as some of you might know, we've heard from Bernie that he will be out of the country next week. So our ability, we have some ability to start that process this week, but I think that's gonna be limited next week, or that's not gonna happen next week.
And so
Yeah.
maybe two things. One is, should we have him on the agenda for the November 7th meeting?
Yeah.
Sounds like probably that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
And the other is, I think, Karen, you may have sent out the last document that we used that was describing the town of Reading and what we're looking for. In any event, I think we saw it at our last meeting
yeah,
somehow.
It's there.
Yeah,
I guess I had to.
and maybe, maybe it would be a desire of
I
the
think
board
so.
to, everybody kind of take a look at that and see what
It's already written.
things we wanna work on about it, changes, updates. And be prepared with that, certainly before the next meeting.
But, if the goal is to seat a screening committee by December, it sounds like we will not be able to do that without holding a special meeting in November, unfortunately. Because say we vote on the makeup of the screening committee on November 7th. We post for either one or two, at-large community members on November 8th. We can't interview until the 22nd, bless you, which is unfortunately also the week of not only it's the week of town meeting, select board, and oh, by the way, Thanksgiving. So potentially we're interviewing screening committee applicants during the week of November 28th. The last week in November, the week right after Thanksgiving.
Unless we moved our select board meeting to Wednesday of that week, if we don't feel like it's right after town meeting, I don't know how heavy that agenda is gonna be, then we get it done.
So Karen, you're saying moving the select board meeting to November 22nd, the night before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, if people aren't traveling or able. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, it's the night before? Yeah, it is. All right, never mind. It's late, it's 10:30.
I probably heard someone yelling in my ear.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I was looking
Absolutely
at,
not, what are you doing?
I didn't think it was that close. Okay, got it.
You can convert the oof.
Why don't we
to-
cancel? Can we cancel the 21st? No, sorry.
We can come back to your point, the first point, which is can we post for volunteers before we have our decision on how many it's gonna be?
Yeah, I mean, that would be great, but I guess I'm also just concerned about the fact that, you know, depending on how our consensus, you know, decides who else is on there, I don't know that we can say right now whether we, you know, whether we want 1 or 2 residents. Or, you know, I just speak for myself, I don't know if I can say whether I want 1 or 2.
Or is it 2 or 3, if you wanna use this as a model? If, so the moderators want 2, so it could be 2 to 3, unless we're all in agreement that we would ask Alan if he's willing to do it again.
I think it's 1 or 2. I guess I kind of flip-flop now on what I said. It's more of, I guess we can still advertise it to make a deadline that, you know, we can advertise it tomorrow that we're looking.
Right.
You know, we don't have to say, we're looking for 1, we're looking for 2,
Up to
we're
3.
looking
Well, but is that actually correct? And I guess maybe that might be a question
a
for,
minimum of 1. We're
or
looking-
I don't know if that's a question for, it seems like that might be a question for town council in terms of, is it appropriate and legal for us to post a volunteer opportunity for, you know, 1 to 2? I fear that that's, even though that would help us a lot on our timeline, that's might not pass muster legally if we're saying you know, up to,
Up to 2.
I see on the volunteer opportunity from 2021, it's up to 2 resident apartment
Oh, it
units.
did say that.
Yeah,
All right then. There you go.
So I think
Must be okay.
I think we're like, this is a different scenario where we are under the gun to be able to make something by a certain thing. And if we
Yeah.
don't have things lined up now, it's gonna put everything off going forward.
You remember it was like 3 or 4 hours, right? And everyone had to sit there and we had to say no, it was excruciating. That's like the best use of that word. Do you remember that?
I hope that we don't have to do it again.
well, but I also, I
After
mean,
this.
But that's the path we're going down.
it's but it's also one of those things that, you know, I don't want a screening committee that results in people who are either already department heads or, you know, board or committee volunteers. Because I think, you know, if we say we wanna encourage, you know, new volunteerism, we should walk that talk. As difficult as it is.
So are we looking for non-board and committee members?
I mean, ideally, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, being a board or a committee member, you know, disqualifies you, but in an ideal world, I would love to see, and I think, you know, I don't know if Chris Futo was a board or committee member back in the day, but
No, it's not.
No, we didn't explicitly say that, so.
well, and I don't think
mean,
we should, but you know, I don't think we should, but I think there should be, I think there should be at least 1 space for a non, you know, board or committee member.
But I think we should say that. I mean, people invested a lot of time in that and we spent hours only to tell them no. So we should probably be upfront that special preference will be given to at least one non-board and committee members, if that's what you feel is important. Excruciating, like I can't express how excruciating it was. It was like 2 minutes a person, 2 minutes a it was excruciating.
Yep, and you know, the VASC is, you know, yeah,
It's not like the VASC. The VASC is a piece of cake compared to this. You guys say, we say yes to the vast majority of applicants and we just get to know them. This is saying no to the vast majority of hardworking residents.
understood.
Alright.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe Fidel, could we please get town council's opinion tomorrow on whether we can say up to 2 residents to serve ex officio? And if that passes legal muster, the goal would be to post it tomorrow? Is that what I'm hearing?
Mhm.
So They wouldn't be ex officio.
Sorry, not ex officio, they'd be I mean, I call it kind of at large, but just, yeah, not ex officio. So it would be up to 2 residents to serve.
Do we have any principals that are residents left?
I don't know. The answer to that question.
I believe
Can any of them afford to live in this town?
doesn't the Coolidge principal live here?
I believe
Sarah
Principal
Marchand?
Marchand might, maybe. Interesting. I don't know. I don't believe any of them applied last time. It's a different time.
We can anticipate who's already going to apply, and
Yeah, that's why I keep
hopefully
bringing
we'd
up
like to see
excruciating.
somebody else walk through the door that every one of us goes, I don't know what that is. But it's not the case.
I mean,
Barry, can I ask a question, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. How much transition time are we gonna have with Fidel as our town manager?
Can you take that question? Sure. So I start officially in Chelsea on January 1. And there is a potential item on your meeting for November 7th. Discuss appointment of acting town manager.
Okay, so that just confirms me that we have to move at lightning speed, because it sounds like we're gonna have 0 transition at all. And, you know, it makes sense to start a new job in a new year, but last time we had a great transition with Bob and Fidel for a few weeks. Doesn't sound like we're gonna have that on this one, so maybe I guess it doesn't matter. The new town manager starts, because we're not gonna have transition, it sounds like. So I just wanted to get an answer to that. Thank you.
Yes.
last time we didn't, it seemed awkward to have, we had a lot of former select board members apply and we didn't pick any of them. I'd like to treat members of the board, former select board members as a special club and not, and respect them. Would we be thinking about saying?
I nominated Barry Berman last time, I recall that, so.
This is why excruciating.
I get it.
Okay.
I get it, but you know, this is what we've gotta.
I think I'll be on Zoom that night.
This is what we've gotta
Just gonna
grind.
let you know.
This is what we've gotta grind through, and you know, I'd
Well,
like
not-
to,
yeah.
and I'd like to grind through it in a way that, you know, it is resulting in a good result, which is a good town, you know, the best possible candidate getting hired. So, okay, so, Fidel will check with town council on the legality of posting for up to 2 residents to serve. He'll keep us all posted, assuming it passes muster, we can post the volunteer opportunity tomorrow. We can vote on the screening committee on November 7th, ask Bernie Lynch to meet us, with us on November 7th as well. In the meantime, we'll all take as homework to look at the Reading synopsis or summary, 1-pager document, and any other documents that we need to prepare for this. And then Carlo's question brings up a good point. I had, you know, in kind of thinking ahead to future agenda items, I do want to talk about an acting town manager so that we can discuss it on November 7th and vote on it on either the 21st or December 5th. December 5th is our last meeting of the year that's not budget related. And town council informed me that we would, of course, not officially appoint the acting town manager until Fidel leaves, but we want to have that, of course, decided by our last regular meeting of the year. Does that sound okay to everyone? Yes.
Maybe one other suggestion, have we signed a contract with Bernie Lynch at this point?
Yes.
We have. Is he in the country this week?
No.
He's not, he's already gone.
Oh.
Okay,
I didn't, okay, I thought he was still here.
so
Okay.
much, but my ideas,
Okay.
now moved.
Okay. All right,
He's responding on email, obviously.
So what I remember last time is that pre our first meeting with him, he provided us with a lot of information about the process and the things we needed to gather together and just kind of I'm gonna call it an overview. So in addition to the document that I think we just talked about, thinking about ourselves, I wonder if there's some other things that are there. I also remember that he set up individual interviews with each board member. And I don't know if his office might have the, ability to do that and kind of check in with us and get that going so that we don't have to start on November 7th, we can start kind of now.
I'll reach out to Bernie.
All right. Okay, so last two items, discuss future agendas. So we know on November 7th, we're voting on we're discussing and then potentially voting again on the April 2024 election. We know we have a vote on the town manager screening committee and a presentation from Bernie.
Can I just add, in addition to the voting on the screening committee, it's probably and appointing the select board members.
That's right. Yep, thank you. Yep. And it's initial discussion of acting town manager. Yeah, and Fidel, did you mention that is it Chris Cole will give a presentation on November 7th?
So Chris Cole is teed up. He's teed up for a presentation on November 7th, and also teed up is Greg Phipps. However, I don't know, this agenda is looking a little nuts for November 7th. So those might be two good ones to bump off if that's up to the board, obviously at the board's discretion. Those are not necessarily urgent in my opinion, but it's up to you, obviously.
I mean, for my part, I wouldn't mind a short, meet and greet with Chris before winter really kicks in, just to kind of see him and congratulate him and kind of hear how he's transitioning with Jane's help.
Sure.
What do others think?
Is Albert coming in the next meeting too?
Yeah.
Is that on the?
Yes, it will be.
So maybe ask Greg to push out a meeting.
Yeah, okay.
And then potentially maybe discussing moving the election to May in a scenario, but not at the next one, obviously.
Yeah. Last time we talked about someone like maybe Jenna for an update on kind of community services and elder affairs activities specifically with regard to the ARPA money. So I think we should probably keep that, a brief presentation on, we were supposed to do it today, but November 7th.
So that is slated for your November 21st.
Oh, okay, yep. Okay.
And it was intentional. There's a lot of conversations that are happening with Recalc and with Council on Aging and probably some more homework that needs to be done.
Okay.
There were also two proposed traffic amendments, which have been advertised now in the paper, so it's a public hearing.
Okay. Can we do that on the 7th?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Other items?
There's one item that I would like to request. As you know, we are progressing through our negotiations, contract negotiations. We have reached tentative agreement with the firefighters, with the union of the firefighters. Those agreements are approved in executive session. So that is something that maybe we could do on at the end of the meeting on November 7th.
That's great news.
Becky?
Yeah,
I don't know if, I didn't see it anywhere in future agendas yet, but are we gonna be discussing what's gonna be displayed on the town common and, you know, either, I don't wanna say ask, for other denominations, but, you know, well, I mean, I guess I can't say that because it's not religious, but are we gonna have that discussion? Because last year it was not great timing and it became a big to-do. So now it's third week in October and we haven't discussed what's gonna be or not be on the town common for the holidays.
Go ahead, Mark.
So the vote that we eventually took last year was not a one-year vote, just to be clear. So could there be others? Potentially, but we already voted what's set for this year, at least so far.
Okay, thank you. I think we should just be more clear about it. I don't remember that. Obviously, I believe you, but I don't remember the exact. I thought it was going to be year to year, but I'd have to go back and look at the vote. But I think we should be clear with the town that this is what we're doing going forward. That's all. I'm okay with it. I just think you know, people need to know. That's all.
So let's all be circumspect about this and careful. We can lead into trouble, or we can kind of behave as we set out. So I would suggest that we may want to talk more about this and what we're thinking. I'm concerned that it's coming up now.
So I'm concerned that I got attacked earlier tonight and now this. We do have a code of conduct.
I'm asking questions. I don't really understand. I'm asking questions.
Yeah, I mean, my
interpretation, Carlo, last year was that we were voting on those symbols, not just for 2022, but going forward. If board members have proposals for, you know, different displays, we can certainly entertain those, but I did not intend to revote that this year or going forward.
Thank you. That's why I asked. I have no qualms about what Mark stated. That's why I asked the question. You know, people are interpreting things, but I legitimately asked the question. It was a year ago, and you know, that's all I'm doing. So if that's going to be ongoing, like I said, I'm totally fine with it. But I didn't remember, so.
Okay.
All right, any other agenda items? Just keeping in mind that we've got 3 regular meetings for the rest of the year.
Yep, so, if you had a chance to ask, the Burbank Ice Arena if they give us a quick update on the financials and the roof, maybe December 5th, just a quick update. It's been over a year.
And Karen, do you have any indication of whether have you raised this with them coming here on December 5th or sometime?
No, I'm asking the town manager to ask
Okay.
them. We've listed it as an annual visit with them.
Okay.
So no, I'm,
I've asked them that,
oh, okay, you just haven't heard
haven't
back.
scheduled it yet.
Okay,
like,
okay,
to an official date.
Yeah, we can plan it for December 5th. Yeah. Any other
Doesn't have to be
items?
long. We'll have shopping to do.
Just surprised we only have 3 meetings.
Yeah,
Well, town meeting is, yeah.
Yeah.
Still.
yeah, no, it's short, so. Okay, well, last item, we have meeting minutes back on October 10th. It was a brief meeting, so brief minutes. Caitlin, did you receive any edits or comments?
I did not.
Any board members have edits or comments?
I like the font difference. I mean, it's definitely, whoever did it displays well. It's different than the prior one, so I appreciate that. It looks better.
Thank you. I like it too.
All right.
Okay, so is there a motion to adopt the October 10th, 2023 minutes?
So moved.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks for that second, Mark. So we'll vote on those. Carlo?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Jackie, yes, we're 5-0. And is there a motion to adjourn?
There is.
Thanks, Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Chris. Carlo?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Jackie, yes. So we're adjourned. Thank you. Good night.